Okay, can everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need to add some stuff. That's your plan.
I have an announcement. Do you want
Why
me to
don't
go ahead?
why don't you do the announcement?
All right, I have an announcement. As you know, at the last meeting, Dave Lent, who was chair of the Finance Study Committee, said that we would be having a series of meetings to review the Finance Committee study recommendations to the board. They are posted online. One change. The community center is not available on Mondays, and rather than changing the dates, we're gonna have the meetings at Village Hall, okay? Same time, same dates, but in Village Hall instead of the community center. So those of you who are planning on attending, that's where we'll be, don't forget, and come to the wrong place.
Will there be a sign on the door to the community center?
I'm sure that Roseanne would take care of that, or somebody. It's on the website and we're announcing it enough in advance that people should know.
Put it in the daytime and the night.
Okay.
Pardon?
You want me to bring a sign down there and ask them to put it on the door?
Oh, that would be lovely, Ira. Ira's gonna put a sign up, Ellen.
I'm gonna give them the sign so they can put it
Yeah.
up on the doors.
Okay, a couple of housekeeping. In terms of the agenda, the village board needs to take some action that they're requesting that we do before we get into the meat and potatoes of our discussion of the joint town village meeting. And then we need to continue a town board meeting afterwards. And I need to add two things on to the town board agenda, which is the retirement resolution that we just needed to amend from last week when we did it, and a quick amendment to the Al Wegner's Association of Towns resolution on the tree resolution that will be brought up at the Association of Towns. So with those amendments, do I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motions are carried. We were, it depends, do you want to do the village stuff first and get that out of the way?
That would be good.
Okay, so why don't you
Or
do
do we want
that?
to do any,
So we
want to
have
do
three
announcements
things.
first, just to get that out of the way?
Well,
or-
Sally did an announcement, do you have?
I have
anybody
one.
Go ahead.
Hmm?
You can do an announcement?
Want to do
No, I did mine.
Yeah,
There's
she
no
did.
others? Okay, good. No,
Nobody else
okay.
has any announcements?
No, that's-
Thank you, Jeff.
no.
Okay, fine. Why don't we let the village just take care of their work so Katie can go home?
Do me first.
It-
Okay.
But poor Rosette has to stay.
So in order to make it more easy to post documents on the village website and make them more easy to organize, we're gonna adopt Google Drive and use that as a link onto our webpage, which is a very easy format of posting documents on. So this motion is pertaining to that. So the first motion will be to create a Village of New Paltz Google account, and along just a couple of side notes with it, this account will be maintained and created by the Office of the Clerk for the purpose of posting Village of New Paltz documents to the Village of New Paltz webpage. The documents, should I be doing this? The documents will be posted within the Village of New Paltz Google accounts, Google Drive, so it's like a separate thing within Google, our Gmail account. The documents will be made allowable for the public to see, like to view, but not to modify. And there's like a setting that we'll set that up with later. And the link to the Google Drive will be posted on the front and center of the village page with a short description of its purpose and how to use it. And basically, it's just like clicking a link and it'll send the user over to a page where they can just view or download any document that they want. So that's the first motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that?
What, is this the part about, the whole motion about this? Because if so, we ought to have the financial part in there.
Oh well, I was gonna make a second one for the finance, but if you want me to just include it all in one,
Why don't
then-
you include it, because you
Okay.
don't want to adopt the motion until you know what it's gonna cost.
Okay, so
my second.
So okay, okay. So let me add then. In order to basically, it starts out with 5 megabytes, and then so in addition, we will upgrade to 100 megabytes for the amount of $4.99 a month. and that funding will come from the account A1680 Central Data Processing. And included in this motion, I have a note. The Village of New Paltz Google Drive will be used as the main form of document posting until the completion of the new Village of New Paltz website. When the use of, and at that point, Google Drive will come back up into question, and if we want to continue using it, we can. If not, we'll decide what we're going to do with it. So that's the full motion.
Second.
Okay.
And you'll coordinate that with Katie, so you,
Anything you need, I'll be more than happy to come by and help set it up, and hopefully this will alleviate.
And just for clarification, $4.99 is $4.99. I saw Ira's face, so I just thought that I should clarify that.
$4.99 a month. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Or?
I totally understand this because I use
Yeah.
Google Docs regularly.
and I think it's
so.
very important that we get our stuff up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So. Oh, and I was going to mention that if the town wanted to do this,
Yes.
it's a very simple way.
No, I was gonna tell Carol to call you, and I already wrote this all down. So hopefully by tomorrow, Carol will get in touch with you,
Yeah.
and we'll do the same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, for one little link, we could.
Yeah.
It'll be great. So.
I mean, we're trying to redo our whole website too. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
and
is
we'll
so
talk about that
easy.
too
Yeah.
down the road. But cool.
Yeah.
You're gonna be on my subcommittee for
Aye.
the town, so,
All right.
All
Good.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
okay.
You want to do Katie's billion?
Okay, so basically, you just have to authorize.
For 1
Yeah,
billion
yeah,
rising,
Why
this.
don't you ask
Do you want
her
to do
what
it?
is?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
As the village board is aware,
Here,
on
dear.
the 16th of January, they gave approval to 1 Billion Rising to have a educational march in the street, contingent on the approval of Chief Schneider, who reviewed it, is very positive about the action, but the actual geography that was selected would be complicated and it could possibly be expensive.
Sure.
After speaking with the representatives from 1 Billion Rising, they are happy to move just a little bit off to
Onto
Plattekill.
Plattekill Avenue.
So we would close Plattekill going onto Main Street, so almost a direct line between Starbucks and the bank. It would end right after Ariel Dental, but not impeding anyone's ability to go to Ariel Dental, Starbucks, or Chase. It wouldn't impede anybody's ability to park in the municipal parking lot or in Chase parking. It would also, we would send a letter to those 3 businesses to let them know that it was happening so that it didn't come as a surprise to them. But we're looking for permission with the same parameters just to close that portion as opposed to that triangle in Main Street.
All right.
So moved.
Yeah, so moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I have a,
Thank you very much
I have
for
a
that.
third item we might as well do right
Okay.
now.
Go ahead,
if
go
it's
ahead, go ahead,
okay
just
with the
go.
village.
Hurry it up, will you?
I'm going to recommend to the village board, and I hope it will gain favor with the town, but it's really a village board motion, that all future joint board meetings on the topic of consolidation, only on the topic of consolidation, be held by the town.
Oh,
You gotta
so
get
he's,
that right.
he's,
I'm recommending that all future joint board meetings on the topic of consolidation be held by the town. And I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion on the matter? Or?
Yeah, well, I
Stuart,
think,
just do me a favor and use the microphone.
certainly. Well, I believe I understand the reason for doing that, and I have sympathy with that. When we started this process, the idea was that we're gonna have a meeting in the town, where the town was hosting, and then we'd have a meeting in the village where the village was hosting, and I think we really ought to stay with that. I mean, it may be more contentious at times, but I guess that's democracy, so, I'm gonna have to vote against that for that reason, and, respectfully disagree with Sally and others if they're in favor of that, but that's how I feel about it.
What do you think?
Since I got the proposal earlier today, I've just given it a little thought. I haven't had too much time to think about it. we may be putting too much burden on the town's clerical department. So I would say that we have to, I see where the idea is coming from. I think the point of the ease to put things from the TV onto the website and use the equipment here is a bonus. But at the same time, I want to make sure that everyone's okay with it. So maybe if we talk about it a little bit more and maybe make the motion at our next meeting, I could be in favor of it. But right now, I think it just might be a little quick to make that decision.
We can talk about it at the end.
Hmm?
We can talk about it at the end if that's what you guys want to
Okay,
do.
let's put it to the
While we
end.
figure out the next
Okay.
steps.
Do you
That's
want to
okay.
table it, or do you want to just?
I'll
I'll
move it to the
withdraw.
end of the agenda.
Oh,
Okay.
withdraw
Well-
my second.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving right along, are you guys done?
Done.
Are you guys
We're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask just a quick question? How many people want to speak during public comment? More, okay, 1, 2, 3, okay. We originally had put public comment on after we have the discussion between the two boards, because what's been happening is the public's been getting to speak at all the meetings, which is great, but then the town and the village don't have a chance to actually talk because we don't get to it till about 10 o'clock, and everybody's really tired, they want to go home, and there's some real serious stuff we have to talk about. So we're gonna put it on the end, but what we'll do is, since there's only a few people here, is we'll do about like 20 minutes, if everybody could sort of just do it and talk, and then we could just get on, so we can, actually have some time for the two boards to actually talk. So we'll do that, but please, again, come up so you can use the microphone, face the camera, state your name, and the first person who wants to talk, please raise your hand. I guess nobody wants to talk. Okay, come on.
Okay. All right.
Quick.
Let's try to do this fast. Let's try to run through this. Well, as you all know, all of you know, that I certainly
Do you want this mic?
support consolidation.
John, would you like-
I support the ability and the process of the town and the village to create opportunity for us to be able to afford to live in our homes and live in this beautiful village and town that we live in. As you know, there's a political problem that's an issue. We have our mayor that, and his supporters, I call it the Jason West Fan Club, who, let me show everybody that we made this beautiful logo. I want to show it to the board. And I'd like to show it to the friends at home. It's a beautiful logo. What this logo does is symbolize our hopes and our dreams to be able to, or enable us to continue to, as I say, live here in peace and harmony, affordably. I know that some of those don't really have any feelings whether somebody can afford to live here or not. So what Jason West's campaign manager did, KT Tobin, who, by the way, was a school board on the school board, she created this. Well, I'm going to show the board, and I'm going to show our friends at home. It says, what the fuck? New Paltz, we have a logo. Don't ask questions, don't expect answers. Isn't that really sweet and nice from somebody that sat on a school board? I call this harassment and bullying. And shooting down the symbol of our dreams and our aspirations to live here. I think it's disgusting, and I think there's an issue with the people that are on, and I must say, on a website that's called New Paltz. It was started by Jason West and Alice Andrews. There were close to 400 people on that website. This is what they post on the website. But the funny thing is, they make a mockery out of it. They think it's a joke. Now, let me ask you a question. Who here thinks this is a joke, making fun of the aspirations, the efforts that all of our committees and our residents put into trying to create a process to make this place, New Paltz, a living place for people to be able to afford to live in? Do you think this is funny? I'm not going to ask Jeff Logan, because Jeff thought this was hysterical. He thought this really tickled his funny bone. He thought this was a parody. I don't think this is a parody. I consider this harassment. I consider this an effort to take the person that tried to create this with love, and it takes their effort and their energy, and to make it into a big joke. Now, do you think this is funny?
You're asking me?
Yeah, Kevin, do you think this is a funny thing?
No.
I didn't think so. I was insulted by it. Do you think this is funny, Susan? Do you think this is funny, Jean? Sally?
Hardly.
Is this something that you would laugh about? When people's efforts, 2 years of efforts, and then I have people in this audience. I say Mike Russo, he loved this. He thought this was really funny. Steve Greenfield, he thought it was funny too. Now, and then what they did was, they, on their website, they started talking about me behind my back on their funny website. And funny that Jason West talks on it. That's basically his platform. They enable him to get onto this website and basically pontificate. And anybody that disagrees with Jason West, they kick off the website. They excommunicate them. That's Alice Andrews. Now remember, Alice Andrews and Jason West, they're hand in glove. So they don't want anybody that has a difference of opinion on that website. But on that website, it's funny, they seem to make me the butt of their joke. Now, I don't understand why I have to be the butt of their joke when I'm not on their website to defend myself. I call that knifing somebody in the back. Well, you know, Catherine Preston says, oh, 24 hours to go, I want to be litigated. By the way, Catherine Preston erased her comments because she was embarrassed because she knew I was coming here. Steve Greenfield says, should have been, oh, I'll write it. Lone Surviving Ramon, Tommy Liz. Oh, wait, there was a comment before that. He says, Steve Greenfield says, who made that? That's hilarious. Then Daniel Torres says, love it a lot. Steve Greenfield, is someone taking this too seriously? I'm not sure if I have anybody's comments blocked, probably meaning mine. Steve Greenfield says, well, wait until he sees my new sign for the famed New Paltz retailer, Groovy Dinkleberry. It's really sweet, really nice, really, inclusive, okay? This is how they operate, folks, okay? Thank God I was able to get onto this site and copy this, because I don't belong, they kicked me off, because I oppose some of their concepts. But this is what they do. And then Steve Greenfield says, oh, should have been, oh, I'll write it. Lone Survivor, should have been a song. And then he says, hey, John, like, love, smoochy, big wet smoochies, I'm divorcing my wife to marry this logo. This is the jokes that they carry on here. Hold on, it doesn't stop. It continues. Let's see. He says, oh, hold on, wait, I'll get another one. And I just think it's very important for people to understand that there's a group of individuals that is attempting to stall this process. They're trying to they say nobody's answering questions. This board is making every attempt to answer questions. But the major problem is we have a mayor that was instructed to create, there was a contract that was signed that the village was supposed to create a website 9-10 months ago. Now I saw a village meeting on 12, I believe it was 19 or 17, where the other village board members were incensed because they realized nothing was happening. He did not put the contract forward. Why? He does not want a website where you could put information on there so the residents can disseminate what's really happening in the village. You have to realize Jason West operates with coercion, manipulation, and intimidation. And you don't have to believe me, folks. You could ask his board members. On their website, they said it on the tapings, on the issues. I'll say it again, coercion, manipulation, and intimidation. And Alice Andrews' website enables Jason West to use this as his personal and political platform. It's disgusting. The people here that support and all these people that support not having consolidation, I guarantee you, all they want to do is stall the process. We want to answer their questions. Everybody wants their questions answered. I really don't have any respect for you, Mike, or you, Steve, or anybody else that belongs or is in contact with that group. Because you don't want people to understand the questions or the issues. You just want to stall the project so that there will be no consolidation. So you will enable your leader, Jason West, to continue in office. Because we all know, if there is consolidation, he is out on his you-know-what. Now, I'm sorry, that's the way I feel, and I'm happy to say it. And by the way, I've heard many people say, gee, you know what, to make the same mistake, that we have a $50 million, that because the $50 million school budget went down. You remember, but remember, that initiative was going to cost the village and town residents a huge amount of money. Consolidation is supposed to save money. So don't compare apples to oranges. It's absolutely not nice. And I just say it again, I am not happy with, by the way, I'm gonna read a couple of these names that supported it. T.B. Greco, Jeff Logan, Teresa Freeman, Bob Lukomsky, which is, Katie Tobin, Brian Tobin, Karen Edelman, Brian Cornoyer. Excuse me, Brian, it's a hard name to pronounce.
Jonathan, you gotta.
Anyway, I'm just gonna say, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak, and I'm gonna let somebody else speak, and I think I've said what I had to say. Thank you very much. And I appreciate everybody at home. And I want everybody at home to watch all the consolidation meetings. I want them to watch all the village meetings, board meetings, and the town board meetings, and really get a good opinion of what's going on. Don't just watch Alice Andrews' website. By the way, most people on that website will not express themselves with the fear of being retaliated against with these folks, because they gang up on them, and it's a disgusting process, and that's the truth. Thank you very much. There's a lot more I'd like to say, but I'll say it at a village board meeting because it's against our mayor. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Would somebody else like to speak now? Ira? Do you want to sit, Ira?
Yeah, I have to say.
Yeah, you can use the table mic if you want, whatever you prefer.
You want the big one?
I got a big one, a little one.
That's for you, Kevin.
Ira, you need two.
Is that gonna, Ira, can you,
Okay.
I can't.
No,
pull it
that's
in.
fine. That's fine.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the right time to bring up this point that I want to make, so I'm going to ask first. I want to make a point about the difference between at-large and wards. I know you had talked about it.
Yeah, no, we're gonna talk about
We're
it
gonna
later,
talk
so
about it.
please.
Oh, okay, no, it's just that, my personal feeling is that a at-large system only benefits the politician, because they're not answerable to anybody except possibly small special interest groups, particularly in a town or village situation where it doesn't take a lot of votes to get yourself elected. You have a small group, they, bullet vote, they do whatever, you get yourself elected. The problem with that is that you have no responsibility to the so-called rest of the at-large. When you're dealing with a ward or a district, those people will elect who they want to represent themselves. It's a freer process. It's a process where everybody gets a chance to be represented. Now, I know some politicians don't like it because you can't control everything. But the idea of having someone who is actually responsible to people, so that if A wants to do something town-wide, let's say, and it's a good idea, I'm gonna take it from the standpoint if it's a good idea, but Ward 2 may get hurt by it, at least there'll be somebody in Ward 2 who's gonna stand up and say, hey, this really is gonna hurt me, you're one vote, and it'll go through, but this is really gonna hurt the people who live where I represent, who I know. When you're at large, you don't know these people. And that's all I want to say. It's and obviously the federal government uses it, the state government uses it, county government uses it. So it must be a fairly decent system for representation. And that's the only reason that I'm in favor of it. It gives somebody like me a chance to get representation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ira. Would anybody else like to speak? Go ahead. You gotta come up here though and use the microphone.
Well, first, let me say, sorry that your feelings were hurt by that,
They were very
that
hurt.
poster. I best describe that poster as sort of a venting from frustration of not getting answers and seeing a report that came out with a lot of numbers that looked dubious and basically, that's all. That's all I think that was meant by that. And
It was juvenile.
Okay,
all
okay,
I'm saying.
Jonathan, this is not a debate between the two
Yeah,
of
no.
you, so can we stay focused and talk to the board, and let's go on.
let me talk about like the issue about not getting answers. The information about total savings that would be achieved by consolidation has been floating around at least since last November in the press, that $1.4 million could be saved. And I've talked to people, other people that I know have talked to people, and people have it in their mind. There's a lot of savings to be had from consolidation. We have to do it. So that information was put out there before, months before the report came out. And people in the public and some people on the board had a chance to really digest it. And it now, as we've looked at it, and increasingly so, it appears to have serious problems in terms of the projections of savings. There are lines that don't make sense. We've asked about them. I've asked about them since the 15th. The report, I believe, came out on the 9th. It was dated the 9th. Some of the board members, well, Jason and Jeff, have asked questions about it weeks before that and said they were not able to get answers. I still haven't, I asked a question back on the 15th about the police line. $300,000 is projected as consolidation savings on the police line. I
Mr.
think-
Russo, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we
You
are having finance committee meetings to review
me-
all
let
the.
me finish.
You know what,
Sally.
Sally, let him talk, and then we can respond when we have our meeting.
The police line was, I haven't gotten answers yet about that. However, the police, I have watched some of the meeting videos. The police line was discussed on the December 10th, 2012 meeting of the Financial Committee, right toward the end of the meeting. It was within 3 or 5 minutes of the end. And if you listen to that portion of the video, you'll see a difference of opinion among a number of the people at the meeting. Susan was not at the meeting, the other 4 were present. Sally Rhodes here pressed very hard that this $300,000, or actually a figure wasn't put in, but a savings should be put in for police expenditures, savings, because there were savings that happened in 2013. Nancy Bracco says that Susan says you can't do that because it happened this year. A lot of people retired this year.
Wait, who
That's
said that?
the reason
I'm
why.
sorry.
Nancy Branco?
No,
Oh.
she
Said
didn't
that I
say
said
that.
it, but go ahead. Nancy said I
You
said it.
weren't present. No, Nancy said that you said.
I
that.
know,
Yes.
that's what I'm
Okay,
trying to
I'm
say.
sorry.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Ira Margolis says you can't compare apples with oranges. There was no decision made on that, at that meeting, on the video at least, there was no decision about that money, that police savings, but we see it in the final report as $300,000. Now, Dave Lent has volunteered to lead these meetings on these various items, but I don't know if he can speak to that issue because it's on the sheet, but the contention of why it should be treated as savings doesn't make sense, and it certainly didn't seem to be an item that Dave Lent supported. There are a lot of interesting things in the videos. There's a long discussion in that same meeting about tax policy and how to deal with the extra police costs that are incurred from things that happen late at night in the downtown area. And Mr. Lent's point of view is that the District 6, Police District 6 area should be charged extra as a means to kind of distribute that cost. But it's mixed in with a sentiment that somehow, if you do that, then the town's taxpayers that money will be saved from the town taxpayers such that you can show savings to them that they would then be willing to buy into consolidation. So there's a kind of aspect where it's tax policy, but we're also using it as a means by which to sell the consolidation. And in fact, you'll find that Mr. Lent terms it as, if you don't do that, it's a hard sell to the town's taxpayers. Other members of the committee have different points of view. Ms. Rhodes contends that not everyone should be taxed, not the businesses that close at 5 p.m. and not people that own their own homes, but that commercial rental property, not just within Zone 6, but throughout, should be taxed higher. And in that way, that's a way to create savings. However, that's considered by many of the people in the group to be too difficult to kind of include with the consolidation proposal. So the whole discussion is sort of tax policy, but it's also, we got this problem. And the problem is that the numbers, even with all the savings, don't support enough of a tax increase to the town. In fact, it's a slight decrease to the town taxpayers, town people outside of the village. The village properties would get a considerable tax savings. So there's got to be a way to equalize that. Well, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. It's really worth watching that meeting, December 10th, and it's about our discussion there about tax policy, but you can see how it's skewed to the issue about how to sell consolidation, and that tacks back to the issue that I brought up last meeting in my statement, that there's bias in the group. The group is dedicated to selling the idea of consolidation, and that does not jive with a way of calculating numbers in an independent fashion that yield results that are substantiated. And that's why we have to get these numbers done either over by an outside accounting firm or validated in some way that's not superficial, but looks at each one of these lines and the estimations of savings and takes into account what people have already brought to bear in terms of playing critical roles in looking at this. And let me say one more thing about that.
But then please, then you gotta wrap up.
I will wrap up.
Thanks.
These folks did a lot of work. I don't want to take that away from them. They came, they spent a lot of time, hours, weekly meetings, the people that are now spending time critiquing the work are also spending a lot of time. And yes, they're talking amongst themselves, but not for the purpose of nefariously bringing down an idea. And some of these people are either pro the idea of consolidation or are, as people were saying last meeting, agnostic about the idea. I myself am not against the concept of consolidation. I thought some of the points that Kitty brought up last meeting about non-financial reasons for consolidation made sense, although I think there's a lot of reasons that also could be lined up on the other side of the page. So let me close by just saying, get informed. There's a lot of, the notion that consolidation could result in a lot of savings is not substantiated. And in fact, the only independent report we have right now, which is the Fairweather report in 2011, said that it's unlikely that any significant savings would be arrived at through consolidation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else who would like to speak?
Can I ask a question about that?
When everybody gets a chance to speak, I'm gonna let the board have an opportunity to talk or answer or whatever, but I would just like to let the public speak so we can
But
move on.
I would like to quickly respond.
No, but
It's
I
gonna
will,
take more than a
no,
minute.
I just want to let people have their opportunity to speak. Then there might be a lot of people who want to respond, but we also
That's
have to
fair.
get to work, which
You're
is
right, you're
what
right.
we never get to be able to do. And we
You're
never get to answer questions, and then we get attacked. But anyway, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tammy Friedman. I was here early on when we first had these meetings of consolidating the town and the village. And early on, the results we're showing from these reports is that there would be more taxes for the people in the town. And there was a lot of discrepancy with people in the audience at that point. All of a sudden, those numbers changed magically. I don't know how, because I was not here for a lot of the meetings, and now they show that there's savings. I would love to see those numbers. I was also not present for a lot of the meetings recently. I've not been well, but there was a budget for the town that passed by in some quick manner. And when I did view some of those numbers online, some of them didn't look right to me. And I'd like to go over some of those financial figures. At one point, I was for consolidation because it seemed like it would be great to have everyone agree on something and not have a village disagree with the town and back and forth stuff. Now hearing how this stuff is wanting to just get shoved through and hearing how the shops would not be taxed when they don't live, I know a lot of the shop owners here, they don't live in this town. They benefit from this town, but the people who are invested in properties would be taxed more is absurd. Absolutely absurd. And I just want to say another thing I was pretty upset about recently with the services that I'm seeing in this area. I've been a taxpayer in this town for over 12 years, and I pay over in the tens of thousands for my properties. I called 4 times to Ms. Zimmett's office to find out why I see garbage all over the streets, all of the time, to the point where I stop my car in the middle of the road and pick up trash. No one returned my call. So I came here and I spoke with Carol. And I told her I am actually stopping my car to pick up trash all over the road. And she said, that's good, keep doing it. That's not what I want to hear from my town. Not when I pay the kind of taxes I pay. I'm angry, I'm sorry. Disappointed. I thought there'd be some better things going on here. And if we're gonna consolidate and have less services, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. Not to mention the condition of the streets, with sidewalks and the gravels on the sides of the roads on 208 falling apart. And off the thruway, when you get on and off the thruway, there's potholes. You can get flat tires. This town, I pay enough taxes, those things should not be an issue. I'll be attending more of these meetings to find out what exactly is going on. I want to look at those numbers. I'd like to be more educated about what is happening here. I'm really disappointed in the town. and I'm more on the side of the village at this point, because at least I see people who wanna get answers. And I'm one of those people who want answers. I don't just wanna jump at something. And I just wanna say I was a very early supporter of consolidation. I thought it would be great, and now I question it. I really question it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next?
Hi, everybody. Steve Greenfield, Town of New Paltz. Boy, you guys catch me at a disadvantage here today. I wasn't expecting this to happen on television and in public, and I just want to say for anybody who's concerned, I've reconsidered. I'm not going to leave my wife to marry a logo. I don't think I can ask my children to establish a relationship with a logo. I'm going to go home and reconcile things tonight, and everything's going to be fine at home. So just wanted to get that out of the way. This caught me off guard. All right. Unfortunately, that's probably my last laugh of the night. Last week's meeting offered many revelations that helped me better understand what happened with the research and reporting of the Financial Committee. Committee Chair Dave Lent helped me to learn that numerous former elected officials and appointed town and village special committee members, including 2 deputy mayors, a school board president and vice president, a professional government efficiency researcher, and a fire chief, have no idea what they're looking at and are all going to say oops when they finally realize the bank doesn't make mistakes. Freshly resigned Deputy Mayor Sally Rhodes helped me to learn that budgeting doesn't require the actual recommendations of long-standing expert department heads of where and what to cut from critical operations in order to meet the public needs faced by these departments without endangering public or employee safety, but that one only need ask them what responsibilities they oversee and then have lay people decide what needs to be spent on the specifics. Town Supervisor Susan Zimmett helped me learn that this is all about people disliking her personally and that they have some nerve to speak to the contents of the report because none of them volunteered to be on the committee. As if the group sitting before her at that moment was not perhaps the very people who have cumulatively logged more volunteer hours in support of town and village public needs, including risking their lives, than any other similarly sized group in the community, and that much of the public service was in areas of budgeting, infrastructure, and public safety, and weren't being offered $70,000 in exchange for even more time away from their families and work. From all but one member of each board, I learned that it is an advisable procedure to move forward on the design and packaging of the consolidation referendum, even though no pertinent questions have been answered and many pertinent questions have been raised. But I did not learn a single thing I needed to learn to determine whether consolidation at this time is a good idea for my community or my family. And therein sits the crux of the matter. The financial report has methodological problems. It has calculation problems. It has internal contradiction problems. It has citation and annotation problems. Almost everything about it is wrong, so much so that I am unable to find anything that is demonstrably right. As I said last week, it is the worst report of its kind I have ever seen, and I have seen quite a few. Many qualified people have been raising these questions for weeks, and none of us have yet gotten a straight answer to any of it, let alone most or all of it. All we've heard is, watch the tapes, wait until we schedule our outreach meetings, and personal abuse. I sat here last week for 3 hours and couldn't get a simple answer to one simple question. What is the $300,000 from the 2011 police expenditures doing in this report? I don't need to start going to public outreach meetings to get the answer to that question. Most of the committee was present, and that question could and should have been answered on the spot. The same holds true for the $520,000 that has already been removed from various public works budget lines and has nothing to do with consolidation, as well as amounts stemming from pension and benefit savings attributable to those cuts. Certainly by now, a week later, someone up here has answers for just those things. I turn your attention towards the sample language, which I realize is still in development, which came before you last week and sits before you now. There is language that makes the choice to put a referendum before the voters conditional upon there being no increases in taxes attributable to consolidation in the first year. We discussed last week how overly broad that is and what an awfully big shoe may potentially drop the following year. Just one of the way too many questions that you are making no effort to answer. But more importantly, the language only applies to the money itself, with no mention of what that money buys. How clever. Anyone can create a tax bill of any targeted size by slashing services, The language before you binds you to slash whatever amount of services would be necessary to achieve the superficial monetary goal. But what difference does it make if my taxes go up or if my taxes stay flat but my services go down? Either way, I've been harmed. This consolidation is supposed to make things better. We already know by looking at the recommended service cuts that that won't happen. As one of the longest serving town employees, and the one to whom I estimate the citizens of New Paltz owe more in terms of the extraordinary savings on their tax bills, as well as the safety of their lives and property from his tens of thousands of volunteer hours, than any other person alive, stated so succinctly last week, you're not being honest about this to either your taxpayers or your workers. The language of the resolution commits the government to fire as many people and cut as many services as is necessary to create a single year of tax stability. The questions about how or whether to set up the variety of taxing districts and user fees you may need to buy off towny ire at being asked to pay for lights and sidewalks, without going so far in that direction as to lose votes in the village, would require months of research by tax experts. You don't even know how the elections would be run or how much they might cost. The bottom line is you are several months, if not longer, from even being close to the portfolio of facts you would need to put before the public in order for this issue to be settled by an informed democratic vote. If this is a decision that is truly historic in nature, as the supervisor asserted last week, nobody at this table should be handling it according to utter nonsense like he just wants to save his job or any other elements of junior high school popularity contest, which is all we've seen thus far. This has to be done with a portfolio of quantifiable, verifiable facts. Everything we have so far is nothing more than how to win an election, not how to run New Paltz or enhance its standard of living. The government efficiency project has failed. So I say to you now that if I go home tonight without a solid explanation for why $300,000 of one-time police expense from 2011 is simultaneously in the savings from consolidation column of the spreadsheet, yet clearly labeled in the notes column right alongside it as not a savings from consolidation, that even though I've always been a supporter of consolidation, should the two boards choose to rush towards referendum, I will pour every ounce of my energy into campaigning against it, and I'm sure you can see that I will not be alone. I urge you again to hit the pause button, get the ducks in a row, however long that takes. You are, after all, getting paid. And bring the matter to a series of public hearings when it is truly ready. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Anybody else? Sure? Okay, so we're going to get to the business portion. So what, there's a couple of things, but I know that some board members would like to speak. So I gather, Sally, you would like the opportunity to speak?
I just would like to make some observations. Tammy, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long, long time, and so it's nice. I hope you're feeling better. And I did want to, because you asked revenue questions, I'll give you the schedule of the meetings where the Finance Committee is going to review how and where it got the figures, and I think you'll find it illuminating. However, I have difficulty with several things. Number one, I am not convinced that the people who are raising the questions, which on their surface and verbally appear to be very legitimate, good questions, I'm not sure they want an answer. And the reason I say that is I did offer Mr. Russo to meet with you on the 15th and go over, and you declined that invitation by email.
And so, I'm sorry, we had.
And so I'm not going to even go there. I also would like to apologize to Mr. Cohen because I found what he presented offensive, and I'm sorry that this whole topic has generated that kind of response to a very loving and well-developed design, and I also think may be an infringement on intellectual property and illegal. And I think that is problematic. So on the financial questions, I really cordially invite all of you to come to the 4 sessions that we're going to be having to review with you how we got where we got, to answer all of your questions. I mean, some of them, Steve, as you know, are judgment calls depending upon where you're coming from. And I would also urge everybody to look at the video that Mr. Russo referred to, because I think what you will learn is very different than things taken out of context. I believe that you should know that the Finance Committee did make 2 recommendations, and one is a full reassessment of this town. And that is because we have assessments that are not reflecting residential use. We have assessments that are reflecting things that should not be assessed at the same place as residential use. And the police zone topic is a recommendation based on that reassessment, and that is that perhaps we need to think about the way we provide police protection in this community depending upon how much demand is made on the police. And that, if you read the finance report carefully, you will see that that is, but they are recommendations to a new board. They are not recommendations to current boards. So please understand that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I think, Kevin, you wanted to,
Yes, I think there's a lot of confusion here on the part of the public with respect to where we have to go. The Finance Committee generated a report based upon certified financial information. So you use the most recent audited financial statements from the village and the town in order to try to put together a consolidated budget based upon historical information.
Right, 2011.
Right. The Fairweather report did the same thing. They took information that existed at that time with respect to tax levies for both the village and the town and put together a report. And as one of the members of the community said today, that report didn't take into consideration the $1 million that we would be receiving from the state, and therefore it didn't show the true tax savings that would exist had we had the $1 million built into the equation. So as far as I'm concerned, the data that we have from the Finance Committee isn't really relevant to where we're going to end up 2 or 3 years from now. It's helpful as a benchmark, but certainly cannot be relied on as a basis for making a savings argument. I think everybody would agree with that. And the reason why I say that is, take for example the Fairweather report. His information was from what, 2010? At that time, you had a village levy, tax levy of 1.907. You had a town A fund levy of 6,947, and then you had a B fund levy of 2,128. So the total tax levy at that time that he was dealing with was $10,983,000. Well, the current tax levy for the A fund, including the DA fund, is $6.8 million. The village is 1.8 approximately $1 million, correct? And the B funds, the DB and the B funds, are substantially less than what has been shown historically, because we have now properly accounted for our escrow funds. They don't go into the B fund like they have in the past, so our B fund was artificially inflated at 2,128. So what I'm saying to the public is, if you take the current figures and you look at the current tax levy for our community, it's about $10 million, 9.925. If we get $1 million from the state, and if we can drive $500,000 of additional savings, then you're talking about a total tax levy combined of $8.425 million. If you were to take that $1.5 million savings and simply split it between the village and town outside the village residents, there would be a reduction in the village rates of 21% and in the town 11.6. So that's real data right now. And it makes two assumptions. One is that we get the $1 million, and two is that we can drive another $500,000 of additional savings, which I think we can do. So you have people criticizing your work, but they don't understand what your work shows. It's not about showing that we're gonna save $1.6 million going forward. It's about showing what we've saved from that point through today, perhaps. Because the town has cut their expenses. I know you're looking to cut your expenses as well. So my point is, if the village residents want a 20% tax reduction, then they should be in favor of consolidation. And those people that are opposed to it should step out of the way. If the town residents get a 11.6% tax savings, then why would they say no to that? So what's the alternative now? We have people from the community constantly criticizing your work, and Stu, your work ethic, okay? All right?
Unbelievable.
So my point to you is this: what's the alternative? Here's the alternative. I'm gonna lay it out, and it's not a pleasant one. The alternative is that we remain separate, we remain as a village and a town. The town will cut its police budget to zero, and that entire expense, or a portion of it, will have to be picked up by village residents. So even if they picked up half of the police budget at $2 million, your tax levy would go up by 40%. So I think village residents have a huge stake in this. Town residents outside the village won't get the same benefit that village residents will with consolidation. But if consolidation doesn't happen, the town will not continue to fund a $4 million police budget because we can't afford to. So my point is, I can appreciate the work that people have done on the Finance Committee's report, but I would like them to do a little bit more work going forward as to how we can take that assumed $500,000 savings figure and make it bigger. Thank you.
Other board members who would like to say something? Okay, I'm gonna, Chris, did you wanna?
Just real quick, to
Sure.
the lady, the two roads that you did mention
Thank you.
are maintained by the state. They're not town roads, and if you
Okay.
see garbage out on a town road, instead of call my office. I will send someone out to pick it up.
May I have your phone number and your
I'll
information?
go out to the truck and find a card.
Okay, thank you very much.
But the two roads with the potholes in are maintained by the state, not the town.
And I was,
And I'm sorry, for everyone's clarification, that's Chris Marks. He is also an elected official. He is our highway superintendent, and he can be reached through our office here, or he does have his own separate
I've
number out
actually
there.
spoken with Chris. Chris is wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
and I was going to say that the 208 and the Thruway are state roads, so we can't do anything. And I apologize, I never did get your message, so I'm sorry if you never got a phone call back, but we're sort of inundated all day long, nonstop, so I never was told. And unfortunately, maybe the garbage you see might not be on a town road. So part of the problem is we've got town roads, county roads, village roads, and state roads. And so you can go from one road to the next, and we're not responsible. We're only responsible, the town is only responsible for the town outside the village roads. The village is responsible for all the roads in the village, and then there's the state and the county. So actually, you really have to be out in the town, you know, on Ohioville or Naples Drive or Butterville Road, to tell us that there's garbage, and then that becomes our problem. Most of the other garbage on 208, the Thruway, and in the village is not the town. So, you know, I do apologize for that. In terms of the town budget, and I don't know if that's what you were exactly referring to, the town budget goes through a process. I have to have my budget in the very beginning of September, and then the town board picks up from there. And we basically, September, October, and through November, have meetings, and we literally, this board, I think we must have met we must have had 8, 9, 10, 15 meetings on the town budget where we discussed every single solitary line. I had the worksheets that I worked on that came up with the budget, gave every board member, which I don't think was ever done before, every single worksheet. We went through every single line, we discussed every single thing for months and months until we adopted the budget. So I gave the budget September 9th, and we didn't adopt the budget until November 20th. So there was September, October, November of meetings, not just our town board, meetings twice a month, but we scheduled tons of special meetings every week to do the work as serious as we needed to. So it was not slapped together, it was not done quickly, and it was not done through any, shoved down anybody's throat. It was a very, very, very long process. So I just want to make that clarification. In terms of answering questions, again, I will say that the last, not the last meeting, but the meetings before, 3 meetings, the mayor convened those meetings, not I. Questions did not get answered because there was no format allowed for us to answer the questions. And when board members tried to answer, they were told to please stop talking and only let the public talk. So nobody up here has tried in any way to deny information to the public. We weren't given the opportunity to give the public the information. The only body that was given opportunity was the public to question us, challenge us, and tell us we weren't giving information. So we will get that information out. It will be done, in meetings that are outside of these board meetings where Dave Lent and the Finance Committee will present it, and these boards will continue to talk about, whatever it is going forward in terms of how we, decide to do this. So I think I answered all that. I do want to bring a couple things up about the $1 million, because I know there's still questions about that. And I will just go one more time because I consistently call the Department of State. I consistently question again. I know there are comments that are brought to my attention that are posted on Facebook. So even if I don't look at Facebook directly and the question is brought to my attention, I will take the time to go find the answer. So I would like to just explain the Department of State changes to the Finance Committee law, just so everybody gets it again. And once again, it has been confirmed that if the 2 boards should decide to dissolve the village or consolidate the town and the village into a coterminous government with one body operating as one board and operating as either a village or a town, not, a village and a town coterminously.
One board as both.
One board operating as both. It's gotta be one board operating as both. We shall be awarded $1 million because we qualify for the $1 million based on our tax levy, because it's 15% of the combined village and tax levy. Our combined village and tax levy is about $1.5 million. Way exceeds the $1 million. We shall get the $1 million. Now, in the law that got passed by the Senate and the Assembly and signed by the governor over the summer, there was a caveat in it about the Secretary of State being authorized to make rules and regulations to implement the tax credit in circumstances where the Secretary determines such coterminous nature will result in a savings to the taxpayer. Why that addition was included was when the Citizen Empowerment Law first went through, it was with the assumption that a village would dissolve, or 2 towns would merge and 1 town would stay, or counties would merge and 1 county would stay. And so they would get $1 million because it would be dissolution. By doing coterminous, it's still keeping 2 governments, village and town. They're coterminous, they have the same boundaries. What New Paltz is looking to do is have 1 board operate in the coterminous government. But by putting in the word coterminous in the finance law, a village could decide to expand its boundaries to the town, keep a village board, keep a town board, and say, now we're coterminous, we're eligible for the $1 million. So that defeats the purpose of consolidation and dissolving governments, and that's why that extra language was put in to assure that just by expanding your village boundaries doesn't now make you eligible for the $1 million. Now, a new little caveat, it's not new, but when this was passed by the Senate and the Assembly, the governor signed it into law. But what the governor did before he signed it into law was said that he wanted to make changes to the law because he wanted to take out the language that said if a village expanded to the boundaries of a town and they were coterminous, that the Secretary of State could determine if they showed a savings they can get money. The governor wanted that out, and what the governor wanted was language that said if you become coterminous, you have to operate as either a village or a town, which is what New Paltz is considering doing. And he said, that is the language I want. I want the other language stricken. I want it to be very clear, it's gotta be one government. And the Assembly and the Senate agreed to it. They called up my office, said, would we have a problem? We said no. The governor signed it into law. There is an amended law which basically takes that language out. Here is the amended law based on what the governor would like, and it was actually, it passed the Assembly the other night, and and it's going up in front of the Senate very shortly. And once it passes the Senate, the governor will sign that into law, and it will basically make it very, very clear that in order to qualify for the $1 million, you have to be a coterminous government with one governing body acting as a town or a village. And so that's that. Now, in terms of the $1 million, once again, I asked for the 5th time, and prior to me asking, the first time, Sally and Ross Pollock were there up at the state, at the Department of State, with the commissioner and 3 other members of the Department of State, where this question was answered in front of all of us. So it wasn't just me, it was 2 other people. I called 2 weeks ago with Ross Pollock. The 2 of us were on the phone. We asked the question. It was confirmed, yes, we will get the $1 million if we vote to consolidate coterminous government, or people carry a petition and dissolve the village, we will get $1 million. And that was confirmed again. But because of questions last week, challenging once again, I made a call today. And once again, Kyle Wilbur from the Department of State, who handles local government stuff, said, yes, Susan, you qualify for $1 million. And he also said that there's been about 5 villages in the in the state since the coterminous empowerment grant was brought forward. 5 villages, about 5 villages, and he's going to get me the exact information tomorrow, have already chosen to dissolve, and a few of them have already gotten their $1 million, and a few of them are just waiting for the $1 million. And he said he will send me tomorrow. He didn't have time. He was on the road in Long Island today, but he basically said he will get me tomorrow the list of all the villages that dissolved and who got their money already and who's waiting for the money, and they'll get it in September. Village of Altmart is one, Seneca Falls, and he named a couple of other villages and stuff, but he will get that to me tomorrow, and I will release it as soon as I get it for him. So basically, he said, once again, we vote to dissolve the village, we vote to go to coterminous, we qualified for the $1 million, and we basically, and he actually said to me, he goes, after we do it, the Department of State, once they're told about the results of the election, they notify the Department of Budget, and the Department of Budget puts it into their budget, and they make payments in September every year going forward of $1 million to the new coterminous government. So I'm not calling him again, and I'm not asking the question again. That is the truth, and you could say I'm not saying the truth, call for yourself, but that is, the law is right here, it says it. Here's the new law that will get passed by the Senate and then approved by the governor, because this is what he's asking for. So, moving forward.
Could we go back to
Sure.
Kevin's point?
Sure.
I mean, I don't want people to think that we are absolutely 100% sure of 1.6. What I want you to understand is we think there's more. And that we were very, I'm sorry, I always forget I'm supposed to use this.
Yes.
We believe.
She wants you to repeat what you said because you didn't have the microphone. Use the microphone, but
Yeah,
start
I
again.
am, but does that work?
I was
Okay.
saying something about the 1.6 million.
Okay. We really believe we were very, very generous with the 1.6. I understand Steve
No, you don't mean
and
generous, you
Mike's
mean
concerns. And it seems to me that in everybody's best interest, that it would be very, very good to have an outsider look at our figures and to justify that we are in fact in the right ballpark. But I do want you to keep in mind one thing. The original efficiency committee's recommendation was for the 2 governments to consolidate in a village form of government and no tax increases for either side. And I think Tammy remembers that discussion from our meetings. We did not have to prove how much we save. We only have to show you that no one is going to increase. And that was one of Tammy's major concerns, and she brought it up months ago. And so I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, Steve. Okay?
Don't mention.
Now,
don't-
my
No,
point
no,
is
no, there's
that
no
I want to
giving-
go along with what Kevin was saying, and I would recommend that we consider tonight beginning the process and doing an audit of our accounts.
See, I feel a little differently.
Okay.
And that is because I don't think we need to go back and re-audit what's
No.
been audited. And when you say, Sally, that you think you could have driven more savings from your numbers, I'm sure you could have, but at the same time, I think the public needs a little clarity on what you mean by that. And once again, you're not saying that with consolidation next year, there will be $1.6 million savings. You're not saying that.
No.
You're saying that if you look at the 2011 data and bring that data forward and look at potential savings that you might have with departments, there'd be 1.6. But that already takes into consideration the cuts that have already been made in police and other services. So it doesn't give the public a realistic feeling about what the actual number will be in the future. And we're all aware of that. So, and for those people to say that we are trying to sell anything, it makes me ill. Because I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm trying to save people money, real money. And that's why I ran for this office, and that's what I'm trying to do. And Jonathan, you're right. We're not up here playing games. We're trying to do serious work with great work ethic, Stuart. Back to you again. So my
And the rest
point,
of us, please.
Yes. My point is this. Forget about all of the numbers and just focus on the fact that we'll get $1 million. Use that as your baseline. That is your minimum savings going forward, and you'll drive more off of that. So I don't want to go back and re-audit what's been audited because it's a waste of money. I'd rather move forward, and I think I'm hearing that from the public. We got to get off this $1.6 million figure because it's not really relevant. Moving ahead, though, we should try to drive to see where the efficiencies will occur next year, the year after, and the year after that. So I think we should spend our money prospectively, looking ahead, rather than trying to go back and validate what's already been validated.
We have to do that
So
in part.
I think the money would be better spent taking this notion of consolidation and advancing it with the assumption that we're gonna have $1 million in savings. Because we're gonna get a check from the state for $1 million. Now, I was just playing around with some more numbers. If we get the $1 million, and if
When we get $1 million, if we
we
consolidate.
will hopefully get the $1 million because we'll consolidate. If we can drive $500,000 worth of savings beyond that, that's $1.5 million. You know, there's this discussion about how the village residents will get a whopping tax savings and the town residents won't, or town outside the village residents won't. Well, you could take that $1.5 million in savings and allocate it to each entity, the village and the town outside of the village, in proportion to what they pay in the tax levy. And I want people in the community to start thinking ahead and helping us with all this kind of work that we have to do. And if you do that, if you take the 1.5 and give the village their percentage of the benefit, which is 35.5 of the total tax levy, and give the town outside of the village their 64.5%, the village still saves 22.8% in taxes, and the town will save 15%. So there's lots of ways that we can make sure that the community shares in the savings in a fair and equitable way. I think we've got to move off of this historic number 1.6 because it creates confusion. Because we're not saying up here, as we sit here, that we're going to save you $1.6 million. I can't guarantee that. What I can guarantee is that we're gonna get the $1 million from the state and work from there.
Just one quick clarification that I also wanted to make in regards to something that was said in terms of, and I think there's a misunderstanding about the District 6 potential in terms of, allocating the police costs and stuff. It's been a conversation for a very, very, very long time that because we have certain industry downtown in the evening, that creates a need for an extra layer of police that ends up being borne by all of the taxpayers and mostly by the town outside the village, because the town outside the village really pays 75% of the total A-fund tax levy, where the village pays about 25%. The town outside the village residents are paying for the greatest portion of the police budget for police needs downtown at night with no benefit to it. And when we talked about this District 6 and doing this, shifting of some of the tax costs, for the police, one of the conversations, so it was completely misunderstood if this is what people believe. The conversation was, and I was one of the first to even say, and Dave Lent and I had a big conversation. I said, why should Rambling Rose have to pay for an increase in, police costs when they're not open from 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning, and they don't get the benefit of the revenue, that comes at 11 to 4. So we had a long discussion about the equity of how to have the businesses that derive the benefit from this extra police presence be borne by them and not the taxpayers or the businesses. And that's something we're very, very, very conscious of. And, it can be done a number of ways, and one of the things is a business improvement district, that you structure a business improvement district so the businesses that get the benefit end up also having to pick up the cost. So that's what we were looking to do, not to basically say, to the property owners, you're gonna pay for the cost of the police at the expense of the businesses. It's actually reversed, how to get the expense off of your back onto the people who benefit from it, so there's more equity. And every time we talked about the police conversation, it goes back to how do we create equity between the town outside the village and the village residents relative to costs that are borne by the people on the town outside the village. And I think, to temper a little bit what Kevin said, in terms of going forward, I just think what people really sort of need to understand, and I think I'm speaking for the entire town board, the town board is elected by village residents and town residents. We have to represent everybody. But it's very hard when you have a layer of village government that only represents the village people. So it makes it very hard for the town officials to do certain things because you've got an extra layer of village government. If the residents should want to keep a village government, that's okay. That's your choice. You live in the village, you want that extra level of village government, that's fine. But there has to be an understanding that the equity to the town outside the village residents who are paying 75% of the cost of services that are basically in the village, that's got to be reallocated. And we have to start taking care of the town outside of the village residents, because the village residents have a village board to take care of them. And so all we're saying is we're going to try to move forward. We're working to the best of our ability to try to find a way to come together as two governments to operate for the community of New Paltz with a vibrant downtown that we all benefit from. But if this doesn't work, the status quo is not what's going to exist after the fact. There will be shifts, there will be changes, and the town outside the village residents will probably see the benefit of the consolidation not going through, because because this board that represents the town outside the village is going to have to start representing them a little bit better and start saying the inequity is no longer fair. So I think that was the point that Kevin was trying to make. How we do that, we'll end up seeing. We might not all agree on the same way to do it, but I think we all agree as a town board member, and I think I'm speaking for 5 town board members, as long as we're all serving here, we will pledge to the town outside the village that if this doesn't work, we will start to, fix the inequities, because it's just no longer fair, and the town outside the village residents can't afford it, and they don't get the benefit of the village government. The village residents get the benefit of the village government, and so therefore, village residents have to step up to the plate and pay for the benefit of that government.
And Susan, that is not a threat. That's not a threat to anybody in the community. I want you to know that. It's just a reality. It's a reality. We all look at the cost of police. $4 million.
Okay, so
$4
Okay.
million, going up to 5 pretty soon.
All right.
It's not sustainable.
Well,
Is this on?
and I think if
Yeah.
I could just make a, or,
Sure.
did you have, I'm sorry, do you have a
Je-
comment?
Jean started this.
Feel
speak.
free.
No, you feel free, Gene, I apologize.
Okay, so, that may not be a threat, but as the only village resident on this town board, I feel threatened. And I am rather uncomfortable. And, I have to say, I have sat here since 7:30. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Please don't misunderstand. The public has their right to public comment. And that's fine. But there's a number of issues with consolidation that I don't think the layperson really understands that's involved. The budget, it's highly detailed. Steve, you addressed budgets, whether or not we get our stuff from the department heads. We do. We met with department heads, we sat down with them in Susan's office. The village does the same thing. I know this from practical experience. Okay, all right, and then, also, okay, Zone 6. I live in Zone 6. Okay, so if you want to talk about taxing the village residents who live in Zone 6 for the police and all of that, but no, wait up, because really, am I contributing to that? I don't know. Okay, so that's an unknown. There's a lot of unknowns. And what I see is a lot of people, they're disenchanted right now because we don't have answers. There's a lot of legal things like the zones, the homestead tax, which may make a big difference or not make a big difference. Whether we establish a business improvement district, that would make a big difference, okay? These are legal and financial implications that we do not have the answers to right now. But I can also really very much understand anyone's not understanding at home by listening to this conversation. And yet, I understand it, but if I were listening to it and I didn't get it, my head is ready to explode. My blood pressure is way too high right now, okay? We don't have the answers. But what did happen last week was people came out, they spoke about the Finance Committee's report. It has been addressed that the meetings at the Village Hall, the public was not able to be addressed and have their questions answered. What has happened in a week is that 4 dates have been set up for these community forums so that this finance committee will be conducting so that people can come out and find out what are these things? What does it mean, the 300,000? What does it mean that you found savings before? And guess what? Some of these savings that were put in there, maybe they were put in there with the thought of consolidation. And so maybe if consolidation doesn't go through, the same expenditures are gonna come back. But I also have one more thing to say, and this is just a personal opinion, because no matter what, and no matter where I serve, I've always been about public safety. So when it comes down to a police presence in town outside a village, even though I live in the village, I don't understand fully what Kevin's thinking about doing, but there will be police protection in the town outside a village. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to yell. I didn't.
You didn't
I'm
yell.
gonna explode.
You didn't yell. Jeff, do you wanna? Did you
No,
wanna?
I think just to comment, one is that the 75-25% on the A side is based on valuation of properties, and that would not change under consolidation. So that wouldn't change. We're still going to have the majority of the assets of the community will still reside in what were the borders of the town, and then the.
Town outside a village. Right.
Well, I'm
Exactly.
saying without, so I'm not too sure that will not create an equity. So joining the two communities together, I don't want people to leave and think that if you join it, it's then going to make instant equity because you're not changing values. Also, reassessment may or may not be a good idea. Actually, reassessment is always a good idea. Reassessment is not going to change the values of many of the businesses in downtown New Paltz because they're not based on the value of the business, they're based on the value of the property. So that also would not change that. Well, you said, but no, that's
it's-
state law.
If they're business, if they're used for business purposes, Jeff,
And they are assessed
they
properly.
they would be assessed as businesses.
And they are. I mean, I will take advantage. I mean, I take any bar on Main Street, because that's basically what we're all sitting here talking about. We're discussing the large users of our emergency services at night. Those would be the establishments that are serving liquor or are open late at night. Every single one of them is assessed as a business. Okay, now some of them are assessed as accessory apartments with a business underneath, but that is New York state law on how they are assessed. You and I can't change that. We can't change that by consolidating, we can't change that now. Now, in the future, could it be changed?
That's, and our recommendation, Jeff, was a
Talking to the-
recommendation for the future, that should
Right.
we put the police zoning thing in effect, you would have to or a business incentive district or
Well, that's
homestead,
different now,
whatever.
that's
We
homestead,
need
yeah.
to,
Homestead, BIDs are completely different
I
than
know
saying
that,
you're
Jeff.
Reassessment. Well, then don't say reassessment, so I don't want
you
people.
need to do a reassessment
To do
in
a
order to enact any of those. That's required by law.
Okay, you need not to yell at me and slam
I
your
didn't,
fist.
I'm trying to,
Okay, use the
figure
mic.
out.
Use the mic. So I don't want people to think that a consolidation would create any type of different equity between where the tax dollars are generated. The tax dollars are generated the same way when it were two communities or were one community. So I'm not saying that's a good and or bad thing. The other one is, I agree with Sally also, and Kevin, you and I may agree or disagree on it. I do think we should be looking at having someone, an independent auditor, look at the figures that we'll come up with. The reason being is Sally used the correct phrase just a moment ago when she said there were some judgment calls. I have no problem whatsoever when you make judgment calls doing a study on some of the municipal services of fully required, or if you make a judgment call on certain equipment maybe being needed, but when it comes to accounting, there is no such thing as accounting judgment calls. In accounting, you use sound accounting practices based on what you're trying to do. It's a very cut and dry operation. So what the advantage we would get, now the difficult part is going to be for this board here to sit and agree, and as Sally was saying, is to write an RFP to say, this is what we're looking for. If we're going to sit and just say, you know what, we're gonna make a judgment call, $300,000, that's a number that keeps getting thrown out. If you ask for my judgment call on the $300,000, I don't agree with it. It was a one-time charge used to cover to close contracts. I don't think we're going for the police. I do not believe that was a savings. There's no way you can say that savings was because we had a foresight to say there was going to be consolidation, or that there was a reason consolidation will see that money again. That's a one-time charge, and in fact, we're gonna have another charge coming up because we are out of contract again,
So what's more relevant, the current figures or the old figures?
Yes.
Current figures, right?
No, I said yes. I was waiting for our accountant on the board here to pick up on that. The answer is absolutely yes. That's why we need to sit and agree in a request for a proposal to have someone look at it, and there are plenty of very reputable firms. There is a great firm actually up out of Rochester, New York even. They have helped multiple communities look at consolidation, and we use one of them. Potsdam, Town and Village of Potsdam, went and looked to do consolidation. Their budgets are very similar to ours. The village budget up there was about $9.5 million. The town budget is about $3.2 million. Does that sound familiar to anyone here on this board? It's about the exact opposite of us. Their study, they did a complete study on it, their study purely looked at dissolving the village. That was all they asked for. They had a very tight proposal to look at. They took a very hard look at it, spent a few years looking at it. They found about $45,000 in savings. 45,000. About all they found. With the Citizen Empowerment Grant now, I'd have to have Susan look at it, and maybe we'd have to look at it. For some reason, they only qualified for $500,000. I don't know why. I haven't read enough of the study. They qualified for you include the $500,000, they had about $600,000 of potential savings. They put it out to a vote, failed 2-1. $600,000 in savings offered to them, still went down 2-1. So the moral of the story is there was obviously a lot of people that didn't understand what the potential of the savings were and did not see it. The savings they could truly see and count on were $45,000. They have a very similar community to ours. Everything is very similar. They couldn't find them. Now, we do need to find them, and I think with an auditor, Sally, and we take the numbers that the Finance Committee has taken, and we have those audited, we could probably get a really good answer. I would like to write up, I agree with you, I have no problem tonight going to an RFP, and I know for professional services, legal services, accounting services, it does not require that. You can just go out and contract directly. I would feel more comfortable looking at several companies, though, because there are some great ones all around this state that can look at them and show us. Maybe there are more savings in there that we are missing. Very possible, especially some of the larger ones that have helped other communities. And I will use one up in Rochester again. I believe there's, top of my head, I believe there's CME Associates. They have done several communities around New York State, helping them with dissolving and consolidation.
Okay, but that's what I wanted to correct, because I know the community you're talking about, and disillusion never, ever results in the same savings that you will find East Rochester, which did what we're going to try to do. The savings are far greater when you combine together rather than dissolve, because you do not need a village form of government, okay, in New York State. Much of, and the lowest form of government is a town. So when you dissolve, if in New Paltz's case, where the taxable value of the village is only 26% of the A fund, you can see when you're just taking a quarter, but if you're going together and merging and really looking at both sides of the aisle to put the best form of government forward, you can actually accrue greater savings.
You confuse, well, I hear what you're saying, and I have absolutely no idea what you just said, so.
That's okay.
And that is okay, because I will have to, I have no idea what I'll do. I actually
We
can't think
agreed
about it.
that we
But
should do
I
something.
have read many of the consolidation studies all about New York State, so I will respectfully disagree that no, there's no difference between dissolving a village and using coterminous. I will, because in the dissolving of the village, they still identified the services, so I will total top of my head, anyone's more than welcome to go on, all the information is available out there on the internet. Example, combining the two highway departments. So even though they dissolved, doesn't mean you got rid of them. You dissolved the form of government. That was actually the largest savings. $45,000 was actually the trustees and the mayor. That was the savings.
Oh, well, you and
That
I
was
are
it.
out the door on consolidation, so we
I
don't have to
will
worry
sign the
about that.
paper right now, Sally, I'm with you. I am absolutely fine with that. So that was the true savings, so that I have no problem, that, in that example, the highway departments had zero changing in the amount of people needed, because you still had the same amount of mileage of highways, so went forward. Their police protection, fire protection, ambulance protection, everything stayed the same. They saw savings, and again, their populations are very similar in Potsdam. They have a SUNY university, they have a SUNY PD. The difference is they do not have a town police force, they have a village police force. They never had a town police force. So virtually all the savings.
Well, let's
were
do what
just
we're
the work.
talking about.
So I agree with you, Sally, is I would like to take what you have and move forward on writing a RFP that we can all agree on.
Well, first of all, hopefully we won't have to do an RFP because I have some information to share, but before I do, I just want to disagree in the sense, Jeff, that when the committee looked at if we had a town budget and a village budget in 2011 and we decided to combine, what would that budget look like? I believe that, yes, it is assumptions and decisions made by those people sitting there, just like when we do a town board budget and the village does a village board budget, we as a town board sit and look. We could make the budget higher, we could make the budget lower. We could have lieutenant, we could not have lieutenant. We could have more recreation, we could have less. We choose what that budget is going to show,
That's the judgment.
and it's a judgment.
Well,
And
yeah,
so-
now we're talking about hard and soft goods, absolutely.
Okay,
But
so-
we're not
so-
into accounting practices
No,
yet.
no, no, so
So
all
get to
one-
the, if you want to
my-
disagree, get to the accounting practices.
No, the point
part.
that I want to make is the task of the finance committee, and maybe the task of the finance committee was not well understood, okay, from the perspective of how you're talking. The task of the finance committee was to take the 2011, well, we chose the 2011 budget because those were the two, we wanted to use
That's fine.
certified numbers, you know, that there was no
Excellent.
discrepancy and stuff, so nobody could argue with the numbers we used because those were certified and sent to the state. So we felt those were the fairest numbers to use. And so then you had those members sitting on that committee basically saying, okay, if here's the village budget and here's the town budget and we were one government, what would we present as one government? And are there savings in that one government? So we approached the budget the same way the town board approaches their budget, the village board approaches their budget, but we approached the two budgets to say, what would it look like if it was one budget? So we basically use the same principles that we use when we do town and village budgets.
And I'm not
So-
gonna debate that, but I would just simply say, when you take, if you're gonna combine the two, you would not include a one-time charge.
And
Just
I will-
just
and-
like,
and I
just
will-
like when we
I
do
will-
our
I know
budget,
that, and Jeff,
we
let
don't
me-
carry
and just
forward
let me just
one-time
finish.
charges.
And I will say.
Depends on what they are.
Okay, but I will
No,
say.
we never
let
carry
me- let
forward
me
one-time
just-
charges.
Let me just time out
Ever.
for 1 second, okay? Because there was only truthfully one area in the entire finance budget of the $1.6 million, there was only one area where there was disagreement. And that was in the police $300,000, okay? And I wasn't at the meeting where it was brought up. That's true, okay? And Ira fought vehemently against it. And then Ira told me about that, and I agreed with Ira. There was a following finance committee meeting, unfortunately, because we kept scheduling so many, it's whatever, the cameras couldn't be there because it was a planning board meeting. I think there was actually Park Point was going on out here, and there was something else at the village, so they couldn't, whatever. We had such a fight over that $300,000, and I did not agree.
Susan versus Sally.
Okay, I did not agree with putting in that 300, and I had the same exact opinion you did, okay? And I did not want to agree to it. And the only reason I agreed, and in retrospect, I'm not 100% sure if it was right or wrong, I really don't know, but what ended up happening was Sally really felt strongly, and Dave Lent, the chair of our committee, said, Susan, I feel comfortable with this number. I can explain it to the public. It's okay. So I had to make a choice. Do I say to Dave, I still don't agree, and we could put out this report, and it could be a split, decision that, Ira and I don't agree with the numbers, and a bunch of board members agree, and then we'll go from there, or where do we go from here? And because of Dave Lent, and I have to say, and Sally knows it, if it was just Sally, we'd still be fighting. And we wouldn't even have given the report out because I don't know.
She would have lost.
I know I would have lost, which is why I gave up, okay, because I just couldn't keep doing it. The only reason I agreed on the 300,000 was because Dave Lent, the chair of the committee, said he can accept it, he can explain it, and so I said, okay. But I was concerned, honestly, and I said that
Yep.
$300,000 number is gonna put a hole in the 1.6, it's gonna make people be suspicious about it and everything, and I didn't want that because of that reason. But I chose to give up because Dave Lent, the chair of our committee, said, I will handle it. And out of respect for him, I chose to do that. Every other number, we all swear
Agreed.
by, we all agreed on, and none of us would debate. And when it comes to the $500,000 of savings from, for DPW, when you look at the 2011 budget for the town and the village, and you say, okay, if we merge, what would we need, okay? Let's pretend we never made that change in the town, that we didn't start to move towards, like merging and stuff, and we didn't do anything. Those cuts would have been people, would have been bodies, and we would have showed that savings. We would have said, that's the savings. What we did as a town board, knowing we were talking about moving towards, consolidation, sort of said, okay, we can start to try to make the changes that we would like to make, reflective of where we think we're going, and we'll take the lumps now as a town board. So if we should actually consolidate, you won't see cuts because of consolidation. And in a sense, so even if we didn't make those changes, you would have seen those numbers reflected. Because we made those changes, people are saying that's not right to, to add. But the truth is, if you take the 2011 town and the 2011 village budget, you say, what would it be if it was combined? Those changes would have been reflected, because we wouldn't have needed a water and sewer person, because it would have been under the auspices of the village now, and we would have had their contractor. So we would have gotten rid of our water and sewer supervisor. Luckily, we did not have to show that as a, as a cut when the person held the job, okay? There were certain highway people that Chris felt that if we're gonna move forward, I don't wanna replace that person now because I can make do now. So if and when we should potentially merge, I can shift around with Blue. All I need is one mechanic from them to do the roads, and basically he can take the building and grounds people, because we're making cuts with the building and grounds people, so we're not giving, all these building and grounds people over there, otherwise we would have reflected it. So we felt comfortable showing, and then of course a lot of the other numbers were, the fact that there's certain trucks that the village has that the town would buy, but Chris said, I'm not gonna buy it now because the village has it, so if we merge, why are we double counting? There's certain things, like again, the village goes out and brings extra people in to get the snow off of the sidewalks, but we have the truck up at the, up at the highway, so, we could take that contractual money out, because now we have this truck here. So we really did feel that the numbers we put in for the DPW savings, we could justify, we went through, we understood, and we felt comfortable bringing it forward. You don't have to agree with us, but we felt comfortable with what we were doing, was reflecting what we believed those two budgets merged would reflect, but we took.
Based on
But we took
Blue
the,
and Chris.
so look, based on Blue and Chris, but we took the hits now, so if and when we should do this, people weren't losing their jobs because of consolidation. They lost their jobs because of the town
Right,
board.
But if you took and moved everything forward a year now, and
Right.
did the same analysis, your number would be pretty different. If you use 2012 audit numbers,
Which we didn't have.
which you didn't have,
Right.
and if you use the successive village
Mhm.
numbers, your number would not be 1.6. It would be substantially less.
Probably be about
It would be.
probably be about $1 million.
Because all you're doing when you
Mhm.
got together and put together your report is you were incorporating the savings, the cuts that were already made. You were just trying to put together the two budgets to show what the total cost would be as compared to 2011.
Mhm.
That's all you were showing.
That's right.
And it
It's
was
not a
even
savings figure.
simpler than that, Kevin.
Talking to the mic.
The purpose, can you hear me? Okay, the purpose was, the mission was to show that neither the town nor, as recommended by the efficiency committee, we didn't have to show how much savings, but that nobody would have a tax increase. That's a very different premise than dwelling on 1.6 million.
I agree with you.
We can argue, if Jeff likes, we'll take the 300,000 out, it's still 1.3. But the point is, nobody is having a tax increase.
Okay,
Okay,
aren't you gonna
explain
this?
Let's get
finance
We are, but we are gonna explain it, but we wanted to talk about it tonight too, so we will explain it.
The mandate also, in terms of what the finance committee was supposed to come up with, was not necessarily the projected budget. It was to show what the savings would be from efficiencies and
you.
things that would be an effect of consolidation. So the idea of what the number is, I mean, and I think it's important for us to have a number and show savings in different lines, but I think it's more important for us to talk about why those things are the way they are and how we got to those numbers.
Thank you.
Because it's not about the number itself, because as we're saying over and over, those numbers change every year, and it is sometimes judgment calls based on values and beliefs. Like, I might want to fund recycling bins, and that's something that we talked about in last year's budget that I pushed for that was not in there. And, so it's little things like that, but what we're really looking at is what will be the savings when we consolidate, if we consolidate, excuse me. And the idea that, there won't be two a town hall and a village hall, 2 internet servers, 2 phone lines, 2 heating bills, like, and even if those numbers are the small numbers here and there, that's what we're really looking at. That's what we're supposed to be showing the public. And I think it's important for us to just have that narrative of, okay, well, these are the numbers that we have projected, but this is why. And the why, I think, is what everybody is really looking for in the public. And it's not, you know, I mean, when we are getting caught up in what these numbers are, but what we're really looking for is that why.
I have to.
Those, I'm sorry, those are my thoughts pretty much exactly. And yeah, just basically in the most simple terms, spell it out. We're saving because we're going to use a truck instead of contracting out snow services. I mean, that's just a very simple.
Yeah, I got to, you know, to jump in to play off of that in a sense. One of the most frustrating things right now is, you know, and Carol keeps bringing this up all the time. It's, you guys have problems with your, you know, your website,
Right.
okay, and you're buying a new server.
Mm-hmm.
We've got problems with our website,
Mhm.
okay, but yet instead of us trying to work together for one website for the community,
Mm-hmm.
you guys are investing money in a new server.
Yep.
You're
Right.
investing money with a web person. We are spending so much time trying to figure out where we're going to go with our website. And like Carol keeps saying, you know, we could just buy one server for the community, but we're going to buy 2 servers. We're going to develop 2 websites. The amount of money that's going to be cost on doing this is insane. And we're sitting here talking about consolidation,
Right.
possibly not. But right now we have to go down parallel paths because we have 2 governments we're running. So we are going to spend, we just encumbered $25,000 from last year for this year. We have $10,000 that we put in this year's budget to deal with the IT problems identified by the controller. $35,000 already identified from the town to spend on the web stuff we're gonna do. I don't know what you guys are spending, but right there,
We
right
already
now,
spent money. Yeah.
okay?
Well, I was going to say, don't go and buy another server because you could definitely host your website on our server. It wouldn't really be a problem. But
Well, thank you for the.
we can come right on over. I mean, we can talk about that. Yeah.
But that's not a
actually
savings, remember.
Oh.
Right.
But I'm just saying that's exactly.
That is something that we can also look at for
Well, I
now,
understand it, but I'm just saying right now, unfortunately, I mean, right here, right now, sitting at this table, without even, you know, whatever, I'm saying, I already know we're going down one path, you're going down another path, and we're spending taxpayers' money for the same
Shouldn't be.
thing. I know we
Completely
shouldn't,
should
but we
not
have
be.
no
You're
choice.
right.
We have
Well,
no choice.
I mean, in this
Right.
case, we do, but you know, in so many different instances, we could be working better on this,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's 2 different governments, it just never does.
It's because it's New Paltz, not
So, you know,
because
I
it's
will,
2
I will,
different
I
governments.
will tell.
Because it's New Paltz.
I'm gonna say something about New Paltz. I gotta just say, so you know that every Thursday, the Motor Vehicle
It's
Bureau.
the truth, is
Every
it not?
Thursday, wait, let me tell the story. Every Thursday, the Motor Vehicle Bureau comes here with their, you know, with their van, right? And so I was in the kitchen the other day, and the, you know, woman who works at the MVP came in, and I just said to her, I said, gotta ask you a question. I said, you go to every town in the community. I said, how different are all the towns? So she started talking about the towns, and she goes, but New Paltz, Susan, she goes, they debate everything. She goes, everything. She goes, we tell somebody it's $68 to register your car. Why is it $68? Well, here's your breakdown. Well, why this, why that? She goes, they fight with us about registering the car and the cost. She goes, we finally say, you want your car on the road, pay the receipt, and leave. And I cracked up and I said, even the Motor Vehicle Bureau van, everybody debates. And that's what she said about New Paltz. So that certainly does say it, that's for sure.
Can we move on now?
Sure, okay, so,
Well, we
talking
all-
about, well, go ahead, Stuart.
If I can have a second. From listening to the debate at several of these meetings and reading the sources that we have, it seems that one of the main problems we have is a perception problem. We ought to, you know, correct that right away. Everyone's fighting, thinking that some group is trying to push things through and hide facts and all that. And there should never be an argument for that. There's a lot of questions that have been asked. Some of them are very sophisticated questions, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't wish to vote on this until we have the answers. And how do we get the answers? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is that we're going to have these 5 meetings by the Finance Committee, and everyone's invited to come down and see what their thinking was and challenge them and ask questions and all that. And then if that is not enough, then perhaps we'll hire a professional, to an auditor or an accountant, to help us. But the same, I had the same problem I had the last time we were talking about this. And it's very difficult to come up with a scope of work for accountants. They're really good at saying, we'll go back and look at this year and look at all the records and was everything right and so forth. That's a lot different than saying, well, you made these projections. This is the things that you assumed were right. Are they correct? So I think if we're going to do that, we're going to need some very clever people to set up the parameters for this independent auditor. I'm not opposed to it. It's cost some money, but we have a lot of money at stake here, and I think it's worth doing if we have to. But it definitely is my point of view that we're not going to rush in to do anything, and if I'm not in office when we do this, it's not going to be the end of the world. But I think we have to keep in mind that you're only going to keep the public's attention for a period of time. We have an opportunity now. It just so happens at this time in history, the state of New York is offering funds for this. So if it makes sense, then we ought to pursue it. And as elected officials, we're not doing our duty if we don't look into it and see if we should pursue it or not. That doesn't mean when we look at all the figures, we're going to say yes. But we obviously, there's fiscal problems all over the place. And so we really have to take a hard look at this. And as I also say, to me, it's just as important on the governance end of this. Yes, we don't want increased taxes for anyone. Yes, we don't want anybody treated unfairly. But it's really not smart to keep going the way we are now with these two governments on the governance side. And if anybody sits on one of these boards, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Something that shouldn't be, in my mind, that difficult to try to come together and decide on, because everyone's looking at it from their constituents' point of view. It takes forever. As I mentioned before, all the intermunicipal agreements were years behind, and we thought, well, we'll straighten that right out. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen. And it's people acting in good faith. It's not that it's contentious, it's just people trying to solve the problem, and it's very difficult. And you can see how it's going in the federal, state, and local government way, that the budgets are going to get tighter and tighter, and the state's going to push down more and more things on the local government. And so if you don't take some hard choices and find a way to be more efficient, you're just going to suffer. And this thing about keeping the taxes down just won't happen. So we have a real opportunity here. We have the opportunity to make our own kind of government here, with a lot of decisions we can make. And yes, it should be efficient, and yes, every question should be answered. But, we really ought to make a good faith try at it. And we should all come, and we have a lot of expertise in this community, and I applaud everyone for asking the hard questions, and we have to answer those hard questions. But I also say, all of you folks with expertise, these committees are open, and we can use your help too, because we're all in this together to make this better. And if we just make a fight about it, it's just not very bright of us. So, I hope people will have that attitude going forward and take advantage, come down to the Finance Committee meetings and ask your questions. And we're going to try as hard as we can to get answers. And if we need to get more professionals involved, we can do that. But it's expensive, and we shouldn't do that until we have to. So I hope everyone will get the right attitude about this. I don't, it's like building up two sides here. We have the people who are fanatics for consolidation. We have the fanatics against it. That's ridiculous. We should all be wanting to work together and solve this. And if it doesn't, if we can't prove that it's going to work, then we won't do it. But there's certainly a lot of opportunities there, and it seems to me there's enough facts that we've been given so far that if we do this right, we have a great thing going. So I just hope everyone will come down and help us. We don't have any hidden agenda here. At least I don't. I'll say that for myself, but I don't believe anyone else does either. So come down and help us, because we could do great things here. Instead of trying to defeat things, let's try to find the right answer.
Okay, I'm going to bring up something, and I don't think contradicts some things. It was in response to the last meeting of people being very interested in bringing somebody in from the outside. So I did a lot of legwork and Kevin actually helped in the thought process in a sense. And so I would like to potentially recommend moving forward this way, because it's sort of like, waiting for the finance committees to present their findings, once again puts that focus back on that $1.6 million, of which Kevin eloquently pointed out should not be the focus at this point. Again, the community can receive a benefit of $1 million a year, which is no small undertaking in this environment by any means. I don't know if any of you have been reading in the papers about the state doing some very clever little gimmick where they're gonna change how they allow speeding tickets to be adjudicated, which basically potentially could be $1 million loss for the town of New Paltz. That's a significant amount of loss and stuff, and so towns are gonna start to sort of come together to fight back and whatever, so it's sort of brand new. It was just in the Times Record just the other day. So we're under an incredible amount of pressure, and, that $1 million of state aid is no small, that's a lot of money in a way. And so again, not trying to just, spend months focusing on what the finance committee did, but look at the fact that there's a benefit if we should move forward of starting with the $1 million and then adding from there. And trying to just keep us, moving in a productive fashion versus getting sidetracked and never accomplishing anything, and a lot of work and time has been put into this. I called Squire and Sanders, who are experts in the state. They're bond counsel, but they're also expert attorneys. And I have to say that every time I talk to the Department of State, which is quite a lot, Kyle Wilbur from the Department of State, I called him, he was in Long Island, and I got him on the cell phone at 6 o'clock tonight, 6:30 tonight, and he answered the phone, "Hi, Susan." So it's the point, he recognizes my voice. But, every time we talk, they go, well, Squires and Sanders really gets this, and Squire and Sanders, and so I've been really brought to really see the respect that they have for them in Albany. I know how Jean feels about them, and she said it many a time. Stuart has said it many a time, working with them and stuff. They happen to be bond counsel for both the town and the village. We already are engaged with both of them. So it's very easy to expand their scope of work. So I called Ken Bond to say to Ken, in terms of what's going on with the financial report and the way people feel, and we had a discussion, and he basically said that his firm, which already works for the two of us, that they can, through their expertise, take on what we're all asking for. So I will read exactly, that it's a resolution to engage the services of Squires and Sanders U.S. LLP to conduct a financial review of the proposed merger of the town and village. Resolved that the town and village joint boards engage Squires Sanders U.S. LLP to analyze prior year's certified financial statements. So they're gonna go back and look at the town and village certified financial statements going back for a couple of years, and budgets of the town of New Paltz and the village of New Paltz. And they're gonna analyze all the budgets, the financial statements, and they're gonna analyze the reports of the Consolidated Finance Committee report and verify the results contained in the Finance Committee report. So it will get a really hard look, and they might say, you guys are crazy, or you guys made good assumptions, but they will verify the results contained in the Finance Committee report, which is being asked by the public, or by some people in the public, and make recommendations based upon the firm's analysis of such certified financial statements and budgets. So they will look at a couple of years of town and village budgets. They will look at the work of the Finance Committee. They will verify the work of the Finance Committee, and they will also make recommendations of where we might have underestimated or overestimated, and and make their recommendations to us based upon the firm's analysis of such certified financial statements and budgets at a cost not to exceed $15,000 and pursuant to the applicable terms of the engagement agreement that the town already exists between the firm and the village and the town. Meaning we already have contracts with them, there's already, ways that they have to operate, and so we're expanding the scope of work to ask them to basically take all of this work and do this outside audit that we're asking for while we proceed with doing the work of the Finance Committee and educating people and whatever. So we can end up getting this, the outside audit looking at it while the Finance Committee, presents their findings kind of stuff, but at the same time that we're presenting our findings, we have somebody on the outside looking, auditing, and coming back to say, yes, you made great assumptions, no, you didn't make good assumptions, and oh, by the way, you missed this, 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 and this. And so it sort of solves what everybody somewhat wants, So I do have this resolution, but I want to take it to the next step, that I also, again, I had said last time, and I verified it again, that we are eligible under the Citizen Empowerment Grant to get funding from the state to actually undertake this work. And so what I'm gonna pass out to you. This work and more, okay? And so, this is actually a copy of the grant stuff. Now, understand that it doesn't talk about coterminous, and the stuff has to be changed relative to coterminous, because the Department of State knew that the legislature and the governor were looking to change the finance law to include coterminous. They were waiting to see if it got signed and put into law, and then they were gonna go back and change all of their stuff to include coterminous. So you won't see coterminous in here, but it will be in here and reflected since it's all now law, okay? And so, so basically, this is that. I think I have one more thing. Oh, here, you'll see that it's rolling deadlines, so it's basically, the questions due are the third Wednesday of every month. The RFA update, post, and response is the fourth Wednesday of every month, and application due date is first Wednesday of every month. So basically, in essence, what I was told by the Department of State was that what we should do tonight to move this forward, because I, explained what we were trying to do, I explained what, everybody was asking us to look at and undertake. So I spoke with Ken, we put this resolution together based on being able to hopefully comply with what people are asking. And then what I have is another resolution that Kyle from the Department of State, this is not me, this is the Department of State, basically said if the two boards tonight pass a resolution to apply for a planning grant under the Citizen Empowerment Grant, he said that what we should do is that the Town and Village Board of New Paltz authorize the supervisor of the Town of New Paltz to submit an application for a planning grant through the Citizen Empowerment Grant up to a maximum amount available of $50,000 and agree to the 10% match of $5,000. So he basically.
$5,000 each?
No, it's a 5,000 match, it's two,
So
500 each. It's only-
2,500, 2,500.
Yeah, it's 10%. The maximum amount under the Citizen Empowerment is $50,000 with $5,000 from the Town and Village, $2,500 each. And he said that if we pass this resolution tonight, that I can get in touch with him tomorrow. He'll help us with the application process to get to them. Then if we pass this resolution tonight to authorize Squires and Sanders to start undertaking the analysis of, the financial statements and whatever, that that we can get up to the 50,000, that would include this 15,000, and then we'd of course have 35,000 in the bank if we should choose to move forward. Now, again, if we do this 15, we're done with the understanding that we're putting our commitment to this, even if we don't get money, which I think we need to, and I think we all said, we were willing to do. However, basically, again, under the Citizen Empowerment, they set it up so communities that are moving forward in this, they also want to give you the money to help do the planning that a community needs, so we're not, we're not accepting the burden, because they are so serious about government reorganization and efficiency efforts. And so again, this was a conversation with Ken Bond today, this was a conversation with Kyle today, and so here's an opportunity for us to apply for the 50,000. It's not it's rolling, and it's pretty much almost as right. So they aren't gonna really deny us, because it's to help us get to where they want us to go. And we can start to, while the Finance Committee is doing its presentations, we can start to get, our bond counsel that works for the village and works for the town to start to look at these numbers and give their expert advice. And so maybe they'll blow the Finance Committee out of the water. Maybe they'll say some of your assumptions were right, some of them weren't right, but oh, by the way, you missed this, this, and this. And at least we can go down two paths of educating the community while we start to get the work done, so we can sort of chug along and move this forward.
I'll move
So-
it for discussion purposes.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Okay?
I'll move it for the village.
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion.
So now we
but
can discuss it.
I have a point I'd like to make.
Kevin, I think it was
I
changing things.
have
so-
an issue, but go ahead.
If we go ahead and do this, what I'd like to see, first of all, that the firm has the expertise to do this. And if they don't, and they have to bring in a consultant, then maybe we do a little investigation, who has the most experience, that's number one. Number two, I'd like to see them take this 2011 information, boil it down to present information, and then attempt to show any additional expense or any savings from this point forward, including developing a pro forma budget going forward, because then we'll use this money to have the next step accomplished for us. I don't think going back and just looking at 2011 data is gonna be sufficient. So I'd like to see them take that data, bring that information current, based upon current budgetary items, and then have the finance committee, because you're gonna have some degree of subjectivity here in the process. So the finance committee is gonna have to work with Squires and Sanders, and for example, say, no, we're thinking about hiring a controller for this merged government, that's gonna be X amount of dollars more. We may have savings in these other areas. So I want this person to show additional costs, if we have any, and additional savings, if we have any, from consolidation itself, not from the figures from 2011.
I think
That
we just,
is required by the Citizen Empowerment Act, exactly what you said.
So
Okay.
that's what I'd like to see.
In other words, that needs to be stated in the referendum.
So let's get the work done.
All right, so that's why you got the really long microphone.
yeah, he
I
does.
think Chris is
because-
gonna put
yeah.
another extension on
Yeah,
this for
yeah.
next week.
Yeah, no, that's why he does have it. I just, one just quick little side, Kevin, when we did do the 2011 budgets, and unfortunately, because, like, there's like confusion, like, we have a town clerk, they have a village clerk, but their village clerk is completely different than our town clerk, they have a village treasurer. So until the explanation, is really explained, if you look at the village clerk, if you look at the clerk's line, you'll see like certain savings, like one deputy and blah, blah, blah. It's because the consolidation is done with the treasurer's office and the clerk's office, not with the village clerk's office. And in those numbers does reflect the thought process of having a controller, and that's, and so the numbers were changed around to reflect the new government and how we'd like to see it framed, and that's what those numbers reflect. It just needs to be explained.
And I think if we are in discussion on this, that is definitely the pieces. I would have difficulty approving this because those are all the pieces that we're going to need to get to whoever we use.
Exactly.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
what I'm also wondering too, I mean, one thing, Susan, and you know, there's nothing I love more than being handed a lot of paper at the table. It's just probably one of my favorite things always.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
So, not
that's my
But
issue
anyway,
as well.
there's probably money we have sitting on the table right now. If everyone looks at the thing with the New York State seal on top of it, there's a local government performance and efficiency program we may qualify for already. I mean, we may have money sitting on the table right now that we could, without doing anything more, and it's recognition from municipalities that have undertaken significant innovative actions to improve the overall efficiency of governmental operations and have produced quantifiable reoccurring financial savings, reducing the tax burden on residents.
That's going
Well, I
forward.
have the gentleman sitting, no, it's not going forward, right now. We have Chris Marks sitting over there who has reorganized 3 departments into 1 department. I think we should be applying for that right there. I don't know, it looks, but again, I apologize, it was just handed to me now.
No, I understand.
But I think,
Yeah.
I do agree this is the next step. I do not want this to seem as a blockade to a next step. But again, as Kevin had said, Squires and Sanders, I'd like to see what other communities they've worked with. I know there are many accounting and law firms that have worked with multiple communities throughout the state on consolidation. And, we might want to look at it. Kevin's point last week about doing a pro forma. There are many firms and accounting firms and law firms that have worked on these that may have better skill sets, but maybe Squire Sanders does have these skill sets, but I would certainly like to see a little bit more on them to see if this is something they can help us with. Or we're
I
just giving them
agree.
$15,000.
And I just, we got the agenda this afternoon, so I feel like this could have been a part of it. But, looking at these dates, it says, what the next due date in this cycle would be February 20th. So there's no reason why we would need to vote on this tonight anyhow. I think it's good that we have it in front of us to look at for next time. And obviously, I know that this is part of what our next steps have to be, but I totally agree. I'd like to just be able to digest it before I'm voting on something like this.
Well, I'm just everybody talked about it at the last meeting, that you guys wanted to move forward on this, and so.
Yeah,
it was
I'm
in-
not saying I don't
No,
want to
that's
move
okay.
forward on it.
It's fine.
I just would have liked to see this, even a few hours ago when the agenda
I-
arrived,
no, I
and
understand that,
I
but-
totally get, and I
but-
appreciate that you did this research. I totally apprate it.
That's okay.
I
I'm
just
not-
want to
I'm not
digest
offended.
it before I
That's
vote
fine,
on
I'm
it.
just not being offensive, I'm just saying, A, I wasn't here for a couple of days, but B, when I, again, I had to call the Department of State because certain information that I brought forward at the last meeting about the $1 million was being challenged again. So I
Right.
needed to, for the 15th time, confirm it, okay? And so in the conversation of how to move forward with the questions by some people in the public to audit our stuff, it was like, how do we go about doing that in a way without, again, opening up, the floodgates to and how do we, contain this and move forward? And
Right,
that's when
right.
Kevin made a suggestion to me today. I got in touch with Ken finally at like 4:30, maybe it was even like 5, no, actually I got in touch with Ken at 5
I
finally.
mean, I recognize that things aren't an
fine,
easy
it's fine,
process in every step of the way, and I do appreciate the
That's
fact
fine.
that you did the research, and I like that I have this in front of me to look at for the next meeting.
I, whatever we decide in terms of doing, I think an outside analysis is vital to the
Totally agree.
community's confidence in us and should be done whether we get, I wanna get the money to pay us back so we aren't using taxpayers' money. But I do believe that the outside accounting, which we need to do for the referendum, is worth doing, and I'm going, whether we get the money or not, I'm gonna move that we do have an outside accountant, and I wanna move it with,
We already have a motion on the table.
huh?
The motion's already on the table.
No, it isn't.
No, we moved
Yes,
it separate
I
for purposes of
moved
discussion.
this resolution
Right.
Oh, okay, I'm
for
sorry, June, I
discussion
didn't realize.
purposes.
For discussion purposes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
but
Kevin-
So
and
now
Kevin-
I need
But
to
that's-
ask
that's
you,
still-
And Kevin,
What
and
you
Kevin,
mean.
and just, let me just,
I just think it's important
Guys.
that we do the analysis, whether we get the state money back for it, which I would love to do.
okay, I don't think anybody disagrees
Okay.
with not getting the state money back, 'cause now that Susan provided us with that. But, because I see so many legal, I don't just see financial entanglements that need to be explained to the public. I see a lot of legalese that needs to be determined for board members alone, that, I am highly confident in Squire Sanders, and I don't wanna push anyone. But I mean, I have a simple legal question, like what Ira said earlier about having a ward system, and yet I know how important it is to board members to have a nonpartisan election. And so, maybe my question is stupid, but can you possibly have wards with a nonpartisan election? Is that really?
Yeah, sure.
Why
Actually
not?
makes it better. It makes it more likely to work, probably.
And so where does this exist?
Well, Wade Beltramo, who is the head of general counsel, says that a village, which is what we're talking about, I'm only gonna speak, can have from 3 trustees to 7. If, and the history of the village is always been nonpartisan elections, so they can remain nonpartisan with the caveat, and I think Ariana understands this, that if a bona fide party wants to run a candidate, they can. You can't
Of course.
exclude them out.
Of course.
Okay. And that the ward system does occur in some villages, although he was not positive for a village our size, in other words, 14,000
Okay,
count.
so,
Would-
yeah, that would be a
would-
legal issue, I still need ironed out for me.
You know, it's permitted, what we have to do is to decide, do we want it? You're allowed to have a ward system. Kitty recommended that we put the idea of wards as a separate referendum item,
Yeah, okay.
which, and let the community decide.
And
whether they
I
want
don't mind
wards
that.
or not.
I like that idea of having a multi-part referendum where the community has a
Some
larger
say.
level of participation in what this looks like. I mean, I think that that would be a good way to go, but it would also require that much more education on each of these parts of the referendum so that people understand explicitly what they're voting on. But I
would agree.
but I do agree that I don't see why we couldn't have nonpartisan wards, but
I just
I've
thought
never
that a ward
seen any
has
legislation
always
that
been relative to a partisan election process, okay? Probably because we don't have wards in
Right.
New Paltz.
Right,
So-
like in
yeah,
Kingston.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't think it was legally feasible, but I'm not an attorney. And so, yeah, it was something I wanted to ask about the consolidation thing. But there's so many more other questions that, and this is just my opinion, I think ultimately we will be using Squire, Sanders, and Dempsey. I may be wrong. But they do have a wealth of experience in consolidation. And so I would be comfortable adopting your resolution and pursuing the money through the citizens empowerment stuff that's available.
Let's do it.
So that's your motion. Are you voting
Well,
for?
no,
I think,
We do,
I think that we have several different things here, and, trying to look at this logically. First of all, we have a community, which has asked us a lot of questions on the financial part. So it seems logical to me to have the finance committee meet and discuss that and see where we are on those questions. And then we know, maybe where we're gonna, what we would like to do to go with that. And then at that point, perhaps we need a professional to tie it down. Are we correct in that? And one of my questions is, do we need lawyers or accountants to do that? And I'm not convinced about that. I mean, on the financial part, you're gonna need some accountants involved with this somehow, I would think. Then you have which I thought we were gonna discuss tonight, is the continuation of the idea of the governance part. We had those 8 recommendations, and we decided in concept that we agreed on certain ones, and we're gonna decide on the rest of them over time, and maybe other things will come on the table. So then we have a discussion, and this joint board decides this is the way we think we should go. That would seem to be the logical time then to hire the attorneys and say, all right, this is what we think would be best, so tell us whether this works or where there are conflicts in the law, and does it work or not. That's when we need somebody to do it. I'm not opposed to doing it, I just think we haven't said what we want yet, and we haven't had from the community what they want yet. And maybe what they want and what we all want won't be feasible, but to have them analyze it before they've had their input and say what they want doesn't seem, first of all, you have a good chance that no matter what you pay all these professionals for, if you haven't answered their questions, they're gonna vote it down. So let's find out what they want, and we can decide what we want, and then say, all right, professionals, look at this, people with experience, can we do this? And then we have something intelligent to have feedback to the community, and then we can, if at that point it looks good and we wanna go, and then you can decide where you're gonna put it out to the people to vote on a referendum.
We should
So,
have
I mean,
these
that's,
finance committees.
to me, that seems to be the logical way to pursue
I
it.
think the most logical way to proceed, Stuart, is for these boards to at least make a decision on nonpartisan, partisan.
I agree with you, I just said that, but
Yeah,
once
we
that's
did.
done,
And
then we send it to a
one of the
professional.
things that we are required to do for a referendum, aside from describing the form of government, we have to submit a fiscal estimate of the cost of and savings which may be realized from consolidation. That is something we must do.
I understand that, but I think it's putting the cart before the horse to
agree.
go out and put out an RFP for something until we hear what all the people have to say. And maybe some of the things they have to say will be irrelevant, but they're entitled to an answer.
Yeah.
And
I
don't
might
disagree
learn
with that,
something
but what I'm
during
saying is
that.
we have to use
I
an
think,
auditor, an
Well,
outside
I agree,
person.
I agree with all, I just don't think today is the day we do it, because we
Agreed.
don't know where we're going from here yet.
Stuart, it cuts both ways though. You're saying we should wait, get the feedback from the community, and then hire the professional. Well then, suppose we hire the professional comes up with all this other information that we then have to take back to the public. I'm saying that it makes more sense to run things in parallel. And we really need to do that because we have so many more issues that we have to consider and discuss. We really should run as many parallel paths as we can if we're not paying for it.
I agree with that, but I think, for example, on the governance issues, the things that we were to talk about tonight, I don't think I hope we're not that far away from coming up the consensus of what we think we would like to do on those issues. Then you have the attorneys look at it and tell you if it's gonna work. In parallel, we get the finance part is a little more difficult because we have these questions that should be answered. And I don't think we should, once the finance committee meets with that, I think we should, if the people are still saying we want more proof, then we hire the accountants or the people, the law firm / accountants to do that part. But why do it tonight if we haven't got the scope of the work yet, because we don't know what everybody wants yet, or we haven't answered their question of what they might want?
But we do know what we need to provide, and that's what Sally's saying. Sally's saying that we have to produce a certain pro forma document.
Not pro formas.
We
It's
understand
It's
that.
gotta be prospective, not retrospective. It's gotta look forward at where things are.
We haven't done
What's
that.
been done by the finance committee already has taken the past and tried to bring it to the present as best they could. But we need more than that going forward. So you can deal with the issue of what's happened from 2011 to the current time, but that doesn't help you get from here to 2014. So if we just wait and get that information answered, and then we start the process that has to be prospective, then we're wasting time. That's
But
the way I see it.
Well, I can appreciate that, but I don't think it's wasting time to find out the scope of all the
No, I
questions.
think the scope of the work is important, but I think the work should be done in parallel, rather than waiting till the month of April or May to start it.
No,
Because that work will
I'm-
generate
I'm-
even more
I'm
trouble.
not saying
I'd
that.
like to just jump in for a second. What I find incredibly frustrating is, the finance committee gave their reports, and then they got strangled, okay? And everybody says, we don't believe your numbers, we don't believe your numbers, we don't believe your numbers. Bring in an outside auditor, bring in an outside auditor. And, the last board meeting, the board meeting before, everybody was like, bring in an outside auditor. Now, we
You're
have this
saying not to.
opportunity to bring somebody in who works with both governments, who starts to look at these numbers, starts to say what these numbers are, and now it's like, oh no, we gotta go to the public and hear what they have to say. Well, we know what they're gonna say, but the
No, I
point
don't-
is.
I don't
think- I don't think we do.
I don't think we know
I don't
that.
mean to say that, but I'm sorry, but I just mean, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that, the people who are challenging our numbers said to bring somebody in from the outside. Now we're saying, oh, okay, no, now let's, spend the time bringing in what, you know what, it doesn't matter. It's really,
I mean,
I'm done.
I
Say
think
what I have to say.
It also,
Guys,
this
wait,
also
that's
isn't,
why I'm
an
confused.
I mean,
Yes, first of all,
they're
is
saying this
Susan,
is
you're
not an
over-
outside
yeah, you're
auditor. This is somebody that
oversimplifying.
is already working.
Wait, I'm sorry, and I like to go ahead, but Susan, you're oversimplifying what was said, and if you wanna sit here and play the martyr,
No,
it's
I'm
not,
not, I'm
you,
not. Go ahead, Jeff, I'm sorry.
if you wanna sit and play the martyr and just say, I'm gonna pack up my toys and leave, and you guys do what you want, feel free, but it's not going to move
I'll be
this.
just like the mayor. Bye.
Fine. It's not going to move this community forward or any of our knowledge forward. There is not, I am one of the people that I have trouble with the numbers on it. But to Stuart's point, we can't just hand to an accounting firm or a law firm, and I love it when a lawyer says, I don't know whether we need lawyers or accountants.
Well, they're both, but-
I'm surprised he didn't say we need lawyers and accountants, but that's a whole different discussion. But,
we just can't hand them something, Susan, and say, do this. We need to have a very definitive, a very specific set of, we need an RFP that says, this is what we want you to look at, to what Kevin is saying. This is what we want you to look at. We are not there yet. I totally agree. We need to be doing these very similar, what they're both mentioning is what you call coordinated reviews. And that is what your planning board and ZBAs do very effectively in communities. Yes, a lot of this does need to be coordinated reviews, and we'll have multiple things running. Ariana's point about having nonpartisan elections. Well, if you come up to the Board of Elections, they have looked at it, but it's going to put a huge strain on our community, for example, and we need to put a budget to that. In other words, the Board of Elections has no interest in running an election in a community that is nonpartisan, but they will provide the voting machines, they will provide the equipment, but they are then going to ask that someone in your community then become the elections commissioner. And that is brings in a whole bunch of legal issues, because then you have to, how do you verify ballots? How do you verify petitions? I mean, there's a lot to that. That should be a coordinated review, and if that is what someone's interested in, start it now, to Kevin's point. Don't start it in June, start that now. And then we'll be looking at the fiscal, then we'll be looking at all these other pieces. But to sit here and say, everyone asked for it, and just because you don't like it, we're gonna move on.
No, Jeff.
We need to give, if you wanna use Squire and Sanders, maybe they're fine, but I need to know they're qualified in doing this, and also, what am I asking them to do? I need a very specific
And
set.
that's, Jeff, that's fine. I'm just saying what I tried to do, okay, was take what I heard the public and the board say, and then try to bring you back a way to move this forward. Now, that's all I tried to do, was take, what I've heard and try to do something so we don't just keep talking, we actually take action. Whether or not I even
And we
believe we have to do
appreciate
this,
that.
excuse me for a second, whether or not I believe in this, it doesn't matter. I heard what you all wanted to do, okay, and said, let's move forward. I'm fine with the finance committee numbers, okay? So, I didn't, but again, it was just, let me try to do what I think you want. Kevin made suggestions tonight of how he would like to move forward, which is fine. We can alter this whatever we want. We don't even have to do it tonight. It was a way to bring it forward, try to answer the public's concerns, take some of the board's concerns. Kevin made some recommendations, how everybody wants to move forward, that's fine. That's all I want to say, is I was just trying to facilitate what I thought people wanted, not what I wanted.
We appreciate
I
that, but
wanna-
tonight is
It's
not the
okay.
night.
I want to clarify something, because I'm really getting very concerned. The Finance Committee did not create a merged budget for the future.
That's right.
That was not our mission, that was not our charge, and we did not do it. What we did was we took the actual expenditures, not budgets, actual expenditures for the year 2011, which were the only comparable crossover latest figures from both the town and the village. And we put them together and we said, if the town and village were merged in 2011, not 2013, not 2015, 2011, it looks like there are savings. That's all we did. What is required for the voters is not a discussion of 2011, it is a discussion of the last 3 years of real expenditures to prove to the community there is or is not a savings. That's what we're supposed to be doing tonight. They're two very, very different concepts. Very different.
So I.
No, this was not on the agenda for tonight. We were supposed to be continuing our discussion from last week, and we're not doing that right now. And I think that is the problem, and I think that is why there is a perception of this being pushed forward or shoved down people's throats, is because we sit at this table, and I really do want to do this, and I understand that we have to do this, but this isn't what was slated for tonight's agenda. And I think that is part of the issue. That is certainly part of my issue. And I think that is why I don't want to vote on this tonight, and I think it's completely wrong of us to sit here and say that we know what the public is going to say, because we are putting forward these meetings and having people come out, and hopefully we will have people who aren't the people who have already expressed their opinions to us, and we can stand to learn something from the public, and I think it's completely wrong of us to sit here and say that we can't, and we already know, because that's discrediting people who might not have known that these meetings were going on, but we'll see it in the paper, because Stuart and I went and met with Deb Alexa, and these meetings that, well, now the location has changed and we're going to have to republish that, but that's besides the point. It's the idea that we want people to come and participate in this and have this be this open public thing that everybody's complaining we haven't done. So let's just do it and not move forward on these things yet, and let that process unfold. I understand that we want to move forward on these things. I want to move forward on these things, but I don't want to do it in this way. I don't want to be presented with this stuff at the table and vote on it tonight. I want to know when I get the agenda that this is going to be on the agenda.
That's fine.
I just do, and I appreciate it. I really do. I don't want you to.
Please, I'm not being defensive. I just want you to know.
I feel like you
only,
are.
No. The only reason it's on the agenda is because this is what everybody's been talking about, okay? That's all they've been talking about at public comment, that's being asked, that the board talked about. So all I did was, and the only reason it was gonna be brought up at the end of the meeting, it was gonna be brought up at the end of the meeting after we did this, but because of the public comment, because of the comments at the board table, it was like, well, let's just bring this forward so people know we're willing to look at what everybody's asking, and if we want to consider it, we can. If we don't, we don't have to. But people are challenging us to say we should do it. So now I showed a way we could do it. We don't have to vote on it tonight, but at least we're not saying to the public we're not willing to do it. So let's move on.
So,
Here's why
that's fine with
here's why
me.
it's important. It's important to give the community as much information as possible, because they're gonna be deciding. So the finance committee has already released their information, and there have been questions raised about that. So these questions have to be answered. But the very same thing is gonna happen when we do the next piece. And that next piece involves taking the old data, boiling it down to current figures, and then putting together a pro forma or projected budget. There are gonna be a whole series of assumptions that are made at that time, and those assumptions can be challenged by the public as well. So the sooner we bring the discussion to the public on the next phase, the better. That's all I'm saying.
It's like saying that we should have the final environmental impact statement first, because then we can rush a process of Park Point. I know, but I know you're not trying to rush it, but that's what it is compared to. I think people should have public comment on the DEIS. They should have public comment on the DFEIS, and then on the FEIS. This is the same kind of thing. It's about public participation.
Is this, we need an expert in the field.
No, it's all right.
We need an expert in the field to put together this next piece. Up to this point in time, the whole process has been run by lay people.
That's fine. I think just part of the process, though, is, trying to be, and I'm not saying it's not transparent. If you put this together, this afternoon, Susan, then it would have been hard for you to get it on the agenda. But the agenda is what the public sees and why they come to the meeting. And then at the beginning of the meeting, you could have said, hey, I did some research and I want to talk about this, about an auditor. Let's move to add it to the agenda. It's semantics and it's just procedural.
I withdraw my motion.
I just want to point out that what's on the agenda is continuation of consolidation discussion, of which bringing an outside auditor has been talked about at every single meeting. So that's why I didn't delineate it, and I just did continuation of consolidation discussion, because we've been discussing so many things. And the outside auditor has been such a part of the conversation that it was, it's okay.
I agree with you. I see what you're saying.
It's okay.
But I mean, we had set things that we were planning to discuss. This is arguably a new piece of it. It is something we discussed, but we could have just tossed it in there at the beginning. Whatever. We get the documents. It's 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, so
I'm not saying I'm not in favor of it either. I don't think there's anyone at the table who has said, oh no, I don't want to see an independent auditor, because we all know that that's kind of where it's going. But I think,
Yeah.
you know, we just need
Okay,
a
I'm
little while to
gonna
look at it.
recommend we meet next Wednesday night, this be on the agenda.
Of course, we're gonna meet next Wednesday night because we don't have Wednesdays off. That's just the way it goes.
Right.
That's
But I
fine.
mean, you know,
I don't need Wednesdays. I don't need those anymore.
I mean,
but
we,
I won't be for the next 2 weeks.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think we have to take some action, so I think we're gonna have to meet next Wednesday night. We know what's
I don't
on
think
the
Susan's gonna
agenda
be here.
for,
She just said. But,
I'm not gonna be here. You can meet without me. I won't be here for the next 2 weeks, but please have the meetings without me.
well, aren't you lucky? Isn't that just nice?
I'm not gonna be here, so.
So, but I think we should probably get to at least a little bit of what we're gonna talk about for the
Right.
government structure. I mean, I hate to, you know, be a party pooper.
Well, what,
So did you get an answer to the question between coterminus and, townwide village?
Ooh, you got an answer.
if it's what, if,
So the townwide
I
village?
called Peter, and Peter recommended
What law?
that the best thing, Peter,
This is the-
bear with me.
There
that
is no
the best thing we should do,
access.
okay, is not get caught up in terminology, but to fully describe what we want. And if and when we get to the referendum, the attorney will put it into the proper legalese.
Okay, cause it makes a difference in this legalese,
No.
it appears.
No,
It appears. It appears. And let me explain why. What I noticed was that, operates principally as a town or as a village.
and we have that.
But not as a town and a village, which means there won't be a meeting once a year of
As
the
a
other
town.
form of government. The other form of government will be gone.
Except for, we talked about this last time.
Did I misread this?
You have,
About how we get the money?
You get the money by having a coterminous town and village. The two forms of government still exist, but they're operated by the same board. So you may have one meeting per year for that other entity, just to ratify your whatever we do at the beginning, and that's it.
And I don't understand, why would you do that?
Because it's a method for
But
doing
it doesn't exist.
yes, it
It's
does.
a method for doing it now. It didn't exist before.
Yep, I lost you. How does it exist if you are now,
The
It-
law allows you to operate that way.
Recommend
what are
it.
It
you
says right here,
operating
but
on
not
the
as
other,
both.
what are you operating on the defunct form of government? What are you operating?
No,
You're
what are we operating?
operating a
Here,
town
let me,
and
get
a
maybe I
village.
can explain this. Scarsdale of New York is a
I'm familiar.
village town-wide.
Uh-huh,
One day a year, Scarsdale,
Uh-huh.
because villages are not recognized in New York state law. The lowest form of government is town.
okay, so the town has to own it one day a year.
Right.
They
That's
have, you,
based-
you have to be within a town or a city in New York. So
Okay.
even though you might only have a few things you have to do every year as a town, you still have to exist.
Okay, so Stuart, explain to me, what would you do as the town of Scarsdale when the rest of the year, the entire village is operating and running and fruitful? What am I doing that one night a year? What am I designating? What am I reorganizing?
Well, I
If
I
it's
don't know
all-
the specific answer to that, but I believe when the attorneys run down what you have to do, there's probably certain items that a town must do every year. And I don't think, they all say, well, you can do it in a day.
Oh, in
So,
order for the village,
in other words, this,
exist.
for the coterminous government, there's certain, if you're gonna operate principally as a village, it's mostly all as a village form of government, but there are certain things that the town has to do. I couldn't tell you
I
what they
can.
all are, but it doesn't take a lot of time apparently to do this. So the board puts its town board hat on one day a year and deals with those few things and moves on. I mean, that's how it's been explained to me, and of course, someone will have to explain
A
that to us
village
in more detail.
does not have welfare offices. What do we call it? Jeff, what is that called?
Welfare officer. yeah.
okay, but you
Welfare
would,
officer.
but we
Okay.
would
So
have
one
to
day a
because
year,
we distributed it for the county.
you would appoint the, say you're
A
mayor.
village, you would have to appoint a village personnel person to be your welfare officer.
No, it's the other way around. You put you're the mayor, One day a year,
Understand.
you get the
You're
hat.
putting on your town hat, but
Okay,
you're
and
still
you are
designating a
appointing-
village.
Excuse me, you are appointing a town welfare officer who serves under village. So in other words, a village doesn't appoint a town welfare officer, it is non-existent in village law.
Same
But a
person.
town must
Two
have
roles.
one.
But I think these are all valid questions, Gina, and Gina, I'll just use the example also of probably the fire department. So, a town can't have a fire department, but a village can, so there's probably something we would have to do with the fire department every year, but I have no idea what it is.
No,
I
the
mean-
Well, you wouldn't have to
The
because it's a
town
village.
wouldn't, because
No,
that's-
no, when they
Why
meet
town?
as one, when they meet as one, that would probably be one of the yearly.
No, wouldn't, because the volunteer fire department would exist
Under village.
under the village.
Right, but someone, they would have to do something every year for that.
Probably would not have to do it for the town the way we do now,
We
because you have
wouldn't.
an intermunicipal agreement,
Right.
but that's one of the
Oh,
beauties
okay.
of putting them together.
Right,
You have
because
a
there would be
village,
full taxation.
townwide village, therefore the fire company is part of the government and you don't have any
And there's the
intermunicipal
IMA,
agreement.
and that would be
But
it.
the welfare-
And you could just
the
concentrate that once,
welfare
and that would be
officer-
it.
No, you don't
is
have to
the
do an
perfect
IMA,
example.
because the village takes up the whole board, excuse me,
I'm
takes
sorry.
up the whole boundary, so it's one department, end of story.
And it's all, I'm with you.
Yeah, but a
That's okay,
wel-
no, Gino, you gave a good question. No, it
No,
was a very
the-
valid.
but a welfare officer,
Well, I can't say I'm entirely comfortable with that form of government then.
What?
what do you mean?
What?
It needs to be more properly explained to me, I guess.
And I
That
think that's what
a
the attorney will
town-
do, who draws it out.
Right, I'm with Stuart.
Are they
Stuart
gonna
was open
split-
about, don't look at me
Stuart,
like
Stuart,
that.
No,
Stuart
what do
was
you mean
very
you
open
agree with
about it. He
Stuart?
said,
You don't agree with
this
Stuart.
is the way it was explained to me, and I think that maybe the attorney would have to explain it to you, why
Sooner
you're
rather than
you're
later, right?
putting,
Sooner rather than later, right?
well, if
It's
you,
another parallel path we should be running on.
No, I agree with that. Once you make these decisions, for example, on nonpartisan election, I think that we have an email from Dr. Benjamin, which says, if you choose to operate principally as a village, there will be nonpartisan election.
Yeah.
Because
mean,
that
that
is
is
what
Unless you
given.
take
we've
other
always done.
action.
Right. But on these, I think you have to decide these elements, what you want to do. And then somebody can help you design it and tell you where the pitfalls are. And if you're a town, you
All right.
operate as a town once a year, these are the 6 things you have to do, you know, then you can think about it.
But
Okay.
maybe there's information that we should know, Stuart, now, in making these decisions.
never mind.
Well,
You can't cut it both ways, Stuart. Either we need an attorney now to answer questions
Well,
like these,
this was-
or
How can we make
Well, that's-
really
I mean-
See,
easy
I'm
decisions?
having difficulty moving forward, making decisions based on the stuff on the list.
that she doesn't know
That
the legal
that the
ramifications of.
recommendations that were made, yes, that have legal ramifications
well,
that I am not familiar
all right.
with.
So maybe the solution is not to hire a lawyer to put all of this together, since you haven't decided, this group hasn't decided specifically which way to go on some things, but say, all right, so far we have these 10 questions, and we're not gonna be able to move forward, so hire the lawyer to answer the 10 questions.
Let me.
Like
just-
that one
I'm
you just
gonna-
asked.
I'm just gonna point something out, and then I'm gonna, how do I phrase this? Going through this process has made me doubt a lot myself, okay? And wondering whether I believe in this at this point or not either, because I feel there's so many questions unanswered and so many assumptions that have been made. And I don't even necessarily know if I believe all the assumptions that were made in the fail of the report or whatever, because when I talk to lawyers, I get different information. If we chose to bring in, and I will say Squire and Sanders because they are finance experts with legal expertise in consolidation, and if we had chosen to bring them in, you know, at some point, they would meet with the board and the public, okay? And at one point, when Kevin made a comment about meeting with the finance committee again, no, the finance committee's done with its work, okay? It's the board now that needs to be meeting with whatever expert and asking the questions
That's
and
right.
getting answers, because it's not for the finance committee to be challenged again to ask, you know, for their assumptions. It's these board, we're the ones who are gonna vote,
We're the
okay?
umbrella
So
committee.
this moment on, it's us guys, okay?
We do.
It's us,
We need
okay?
more
We're in the hot seats, we gotta make the decisions. And at some point, we need attorney, people expert in consolidation, expert in finance, expert in legal, to sit with us as we talk about forming this new government and what it's gonna look like, to answer some questions. Like, is it really true that you cannot have a fire department if you're a town? Now, you can have a volunteer fire department, but they have to be have to have the elected board and all this kind of stuff and whatever, but they're still volunteer. And, and there's just a lot of things that we need, like questions of award or this or that or whatever. We need lawyers to sit here and help us, guide us as we go through this, ask these questions, make these decisions, debate different stuff, talk about financial stuff, and have somebody help us. Because we're really, from my perspective, at a point where I think we've done as much as we can. It's been studied for 2.5 years in the Fairweather Report. We've had these committees. It's, a year later. We need to get help to start to bring us forward, to ask the questions we need to ask, to get the questions we need answered, to have the community engaged in the conversation, and just start to make decisions of how we're moving forward.
And to have the answers.
And get the answers, exactly.
I would agree with that in part and disagree with it in part. I know we are the ones that have to make the decision, should we put it out to referendum or not eventually. But I think it would not be prudent for us to make those decisions until we have all the input. So the Finance Committee is consented to meet with the people and hear their questions, and so they answer their questions, and then we can go to the next step. We either decide on that or we hire professionals. Okay, so if people on the board are uncomfortable about what does it mean, these things we're deciding on, then maybe we should have counsel to specifically answer that, because there's gonna be another job separate from that, which is, all right, you've decided what you wanna do, and now we're gonna help you design it and tell you what you have to do or what works and what doesn't. So maybe we need to have the council available to answer those questions, so you can make intelligent decisions on the governance, to bring that out to the community for a hearing. Maybe that's what you need.
Stuart, I don't believe that we can answer some of these questions here that are even here. So, for example, where it says the position of DPW highway superintendent are eliminated and combined with highway, sewer and water, and the superintendent is appointed. Now, there are some board members now who expressed their concern at the last meeting that they no longer support an appointed DPW highway because of the repercussions to our highway and DPW, department head in regards to their input to the finance committee. So some people feel on the town board now that they want to go back to an elected position. Well, if we're a village form of government, can we do that? We can't answer that tonight. We don't know. It might have to be appointed. Maybe it can't be elected. We can't answer that. There's some other questions in here too that, again, can we answer them? I don't know if we really can. I mean, we'll debate them, and then we have to go back and get legal advice, So I just sort of feel like we're sort of at a point in a way.
We're spinning
I
our
feel-
wheels.
Now, can I just say something? Like, last week, when we left, it was Sally here who said, and when we come back next week, I want you all to have your answers.
Well, we got the
Okay.
fair weather stuff.
No, what happened was, I couldn't get my questions answered without incurring cost. And what I hadn't done at the table was say, oh, well, is everybody cool, all 9 of us, with everybody calling up their attorneys and getting, the answers, so that we can all come back to the table in the following week and being comfortable with the answers to our questions the way that we presented them.
Yeah.
Because, you can ask a question in different ways, and sometimes you can ask a question in order to get the response that you choose to get, and maybe that's not the most objective. So, I did not get my answers, and I did not come with them because I did not expend any money on the
But I
town's
agree
behalf.
with what you just said.
However,
That
so,
we
I'm
all need to
feeling.
hear the same answer at the same time.
Right, so.
Is what you're
that-
saying.
That's what I'm feeling, and I'm also feeling
agree.
that way, it would also be on camera, the attorney would be present, and if the question were designed to elicit a certain response, it would be very visible. It would be visible to the public, it would be visible to the other board members, but then also the other board members, it could trigger us if we thought that it should go in another direction, or if it made us question another aspect of the exact same thing. I think that would be helpful, and I'm sorry I don't have my answers for you
No,
tonight.
And I
have a
agree with you
question.
100%. But can I just say something? I think we really need Ariana. No, because
It has to do
Ariana,
with this.
you got to say what you thought about the whole process. I really think it behooves us right now to vote yea or nay. Are we interested in continuing to pursue consolidation? Because I feel that we are so spinning our wheels, we need to know that answer first, and then I think we need to figure out a way to hire an attorney who can do what Jean is saying.
I have a suggestion,
Go ahead.
and because I don't think we need to answer, I think we all want to pursue consolidation. I
Okay.
don't think that there's a question of that here.
Okay.
Well, maybe not every single one of us, but I feel like most of the people at this table right now do. I know I do.
I
But my suggestion is maybe without incurring costs, we are NICOM members. They have people who know about consolidation. Maybe we can ask. No, why is everyone? This is why I'm asking.
I'm shaking my head
Okay.
yes.
I'm wondering if we
I
can ask
already
them
did.
to come to a meeting.
I already did.
And they said no?
They said that they do not have the staff to provide that kind of support.
One
Did you send them 10
meeting?
questions?
I'm telling you.
One
And
meeting
what did
with 10
Kyle Wilbur
questions,
say
like-
to you about coming?
We asked Kyle Wilbur to
That's the
come down
Secretary
to a
of State.
meeting with us. We asked him to bring his attorneys from the Department of State, because I said, please, I can say what you tell me. And tomorrow it will be on Facebook, then online, okay? Okay? So, you know what?
Exactly.
So basically, it was like, you know what, you can keep telling me. I hear you. It's written down, but when I say it, trust me, the next day,
And
it's
they
dissected,
wouldn't
okay?
come,
No,
or-
it's not that they wouldn't come. They said, we don't have the staff. We
Right.
don't have, and they said, we could probably get the lawyers to come down in 2 months. And I said, 2 months for the lawyers to come down to help this community figure out how to move forward with what we need to do, you know, is not gonna really probably work. So then I said, we will try to come up to you, okay? But us going up to them doesn't help, because they've gotta come down, they've gotta be in front of the cameras, they've gotta be answer
Exactly.
questions for the public. It can't be myself and Sally, you know, or whatever, you know, going back up there, or else you guys go up there and talk and come back and tell the community what the answers are. But, you know, but we've asked, like, again, we asked the Department of State, Kyle, please come down. Okay, please bring your lawyers, okay? We've talked to, you know,
Jerry
and
recommended.
if we really believe in this and we
and
wanna
they
move
wouldn't come.
forward, then, you know, at a certain point, you gotta bite the bullet, you gotta spend the money, you gotta bring in the professionals, and the state's gonna probably give us the money to do this. The money is there in the Citizen Empowerment Grant to give communities the money to get through what we're trying to get through. So I don't understand what we're afraid of finally sort of saying, we don't have to hire anybody tonight. All we've gotta do is pass a resolution that says that you allow me to write to the state to ask for money to help us go through to get to the next step. What we want that next step to be, we could decide. But why, you know, I mean, at what point don't we start to get the expert advice that we need so we can move forward?
I don't have any problem with going forward with the grant to help us go through with the process, because we're gonna have this process. That's different than, you know, hiring a lawyer or accountant till the right time. That,
Yeah.
you know, to apply for the money from the Department of State to help us pay to do whatever we're gonna do, I'm certainly in favor of that.
Well, let's run that parallel path.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not, I hope you don't think I was speaking against that. I mean, I think, so there's 3 things. We approve that, and you apply to get the money for that. And then we get all the questions in a short period of time on the finance, and see what, if any, professional we have to hire for that. And then if we're not ready to have them design the government, hire a lawyer to design the government for us, then hire a lawyer to answer questions like Jean's. And so we can then decide on the governance part as to what we want to do before we have hearings. I mean, I'm in favor of
And
all
all
those things.
Kevin is saying is do it in a parallel way. It's not 1, 2, and then 3. He's saying do all 3 simultaneously.
And I'm
That's,
fine
that,
with
Get
what
you,
you
you,
said,
you
Steve.
must not have been listening to
Go
me.
ahead
That's
and
what I
apply
said.
for
We
one.
put in for,
We'll have it, so when we decide to hire somebody, we'll have it.
no, I said, put in for the grant.
I make a
And-
motion approving the resolution to apply for the planning grant or the Citizens Empowerment Grant
Second.
on behalf of the town, with a financial commitment of $2,500.
Can we just vote with them?
Oh, you might as well do it separately.
Okay.
With a maximum commitment, so we may not get 50,000.
Okay, maximum commitment of 2,500 on behalf of the town.
And I'll make that motion in behalf of the village.
Of a commitment of 2,500, I'll second.
Oh,
Yeah, but which one is it on here?
We're just, we're doing, Brian, the resolution, so we can fill out the
This-
application
This
to
thing
start
here.
asking for the money from the state.
No, 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 it's
Maximum of 100,000?
Well,
Right, but which
we
on
wanna
the
know
sheet
on
is
this
it?
state,
I'm
on the
sorry.
state sheet, which one is it? Is it the first one here,
You know-
local government
You know what,
citizens
I
reorganization?
know, I
and
just
Empowerment?
went, and, you know, Kyle said, you know, it's,
$50,000 maximum for planning or implementation
Implementation.
of a municipal reorganization.
That's the one?
It's the second one of the local government citizens reorganization empowerment grant program.
We have the money somewhere in our budget,
Yes.
2,500.
Did we check?
I
Did we
did.
check them, Nancy? You
I
did?
checked.
Okay.
We also have the money to do the audit.
Oh,
Okay, so do we have a second in the village?
Yes, I second.
Oh.
Okay,
ours will be from the BFA.
Are we all in favor?
I am.
I am.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
okay.
Now,
motion's
I
carried.
think we
4-0.
really, I don't care whether we hire the attorney for what, but I think that at the next meeting, we need an attorney who's knowledgeable on this topic to help us get through this so we can design what we think we want as a government.
Well, we don't even know who we're gonna hire as an attorney, so it's gonna be
Hmm?
tough. I said we don't know who we're gonna bring in as an attorney, so it's gonna be tough to have that person at the next meeting, unless the next meeting isn't straight on
Isn't
that.
in a week.
Like, how are we gonna make that decision? We make it right now?
We
Do
could
you
make
know-
it right now.
Do
We
you know?
But we don't know who we're
That's what I'm
gonna,
saying.
yeah.
We don't know who that firm would be that's gonna help us make this decision. So how are we just gonna?
I would think on the legal side, it would be bond counsel, wouldn't it?
Well, actually, I'm not so sure that's correct. The bond counsel is really good at being bond counsel, but this is, and they would probably be good at doing this because they do municipal law. But this is kind of a unique task, because when's the last time that somebody did a coterminous government in New York State?
East Rochester in 1986, and the attorney is dead.
That's my point.
Can
So
we
there
get-
aren't-
can
there
we
aren't-
get him,
There aren't many,
or is
there aren't
that
many firms
not-
who've actually had experience. You're gonna have people
Could
who
be
have
here in
similar
spirit.
experience. You're
So
not
the
gonna
only
have
thing I
this.
could say, and again, you
Without
know,
saying it out loud,
it's-
NICOM recommends.
you know, I have no affinity to Squire Sanders in the sense that I'm pushing so hard. All I know is that every time I talk to the Department of State, they always say, well, Ken knows this, talk to Ken, trust what Ken is telling you. Ken knows this, and that's the Department of State who's overseeing this, who's basically, you know, the one working with on this and everything. And all they keep saying is, Ken knows what he's doing, talk to Ken. That's why I feel so confident in a way that he's exactly the person that we need right now to help us, because he's got the financial and the legal experience, and the second floor in Albany has incredible respect for him. Jerry Benjamin, again, when I first got into office, and I was on the phone with Jerry at the very beginning and told Jerry that Ken Bond was coming over. It was only the second time I was meeting with him. He was like, basically, oh my God, I'm coming over right now. How'd you get Ken Bond? And then he came over and he met. He was so excited that Ken was there. And so I just really have a lot of confidence, but.
Well, I did inquire, and NICOM will not represent or recommend, and I guess I can understand why, they do not recommend attorneys. But he said, have you heard the name Ken Bond? So I know
Well, so you need
he's
to say
well
that to your-
regarded there.
Sally, you can
But
handle
Stuart,
that.
to your
How-
point, there's many other consolidations, and there's been consolidations of departments in New York State, and there's multiple law firms out there, so it is information
Well,
that's
I'm talking
readily
about this
available.
coterminous.
Right, but there
model, there are-
large firms though in New York State that have worked on changing the forms of government that we can look
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's
Okay.
gonna be similar, it's not gonna be the same thing.
Well, all I know is if people think that they know law firms, they best get the list going. Okay?
Actually,
I'll
most
Google
law,
it.
most law firms.
How about that? I'll Google it.
You won't find it on Google.
What's Google?
You
You
won't
can't
find,
Google it.
can't Google
Something
what?
to do with my computer.
Consolidation, legal?
Is that like,
I,
Hey, Ariana can do it right now, right?
yeah,
we
see
don't
if
have
you
internet
can find
here.
anybody
there's
on.
there's no
We don't
internet
have-
at town
We don't
hall.
have time for that, yeah, come on.
There's no internet at town hall?
no,
You
can't
were
you
up-
feel
No,
it?
this has been a complaint through
You were on the
time.
state
We
ed,
can't
I mean,
get on
state,
wireless.
the Secretary of State's website last meeting.
No, I had that back sheet stored on here.
Can we,
Oh,
I
okay.
had it from before. I can try to connect through my phone, through my
I
computer.
just think we need an attorney for a night who has, is conversant with this topic. Who can just say, yes, you can, in a village form of government, you can have, you can
Don't know
have.
how to use it, which
That's what we need.
a fallacy.
I think we're having a lot of conversations right now.
All right,
can you guys, we can't,
can we?
how do you guys wanna move forward, or, you know, the town still has the town board meeting we have to do.
Motion to
So,
adjourn this joint meeting.
then we-
Second?
Continue it,
Yeah,
Oh, well,
I agree with that.
withdraw.
Is that, do I have a second
I'm
then?
gonna motion to continue the meeting till when? Susan gets back?
You can do it next week without me.
We could do next week if we have something to move forward on, but, I mean,
It doesn't sound to me like we're going to.
well, I think we're gonna have to find a law firm, isn't that the next step? I mean, am I wrong? Is there other things we can discuss in the meantime?
How
Well, it's-
How
about,
do we find the
I'm not-
Good question.
Trying to Google it.
So I think what we should do is, we should,
I want
we
You
should,
got a guy?
you know what we should do? We should ask the bond firm to give us their background in these areas to see if they have experience. And if they do, we can consider that. Stuart, another way, maybe we get a recommendation from somebody else. You know, it's gonna have to be a pretty big firm.
Well, you know, we have the head of the municipal law section of the barge right in Walden, you
Alright,
know,
so maybe
it's not
get a
exactly,
recommendation
it's really
from-
hard to find recommendations from people probably.
yeah, but a
Other than their own
municipal
firm.
law attorney does not necessarily have experience in consolidation.
Well, I know.
That's what we need.
And it's.
True, well, I mean,
it's
what's the group of
consolidation
people you
and
ask?
The planning piece of that has to be in place too. The financial piece of it. I would imagine it's gonna have to be one firm that does all of it.
So do we think we can have, I'm sorry. Do you wanna go?
I agree, I think probably that is right.
Do you think we could have some sort of like recommendation or two recommendations by next Wednesday, and that could be our discussion for next Wednesday, a very brief meeting about looking at law firms, or is that not like a likely possibility?
That's fine with me.
Stuart, do you think we could talk to Walden and?
Yeah, certainly you could identify them, but I don't know if you can.
Touch base and have something from them?
They're gonna wanna know exactly what you want, but, you know, we can try. Why not aim to have that informational in some details, so that when Susan comes back, we can,
I would
we're all
prefer
here.
not to have like a legal sales pitch in front of us.
Mhm,
Like, I really don't need to sit through that.
mhm.
What I would like to know
And
is
actually,
their,
Well,
their
let- could
qualifications.
Could Jean finish?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were done. I thought you said you didn't want them in front of you.
but then I said, and actually,
Well,
and I don't know if anybody will agree with me or not, but, if you think about Ken Bond from Squire Sanders, he works for the village. He knows
still does.
your budget intimately. He does your bonding. He knows your debt level. He works for the town. He knows our budget intimately. and he knows our debt level.
And
And
assets.
he knows what our future plans are for certain projects that we need to take care of.
And he knows fund balances
So,
for both.
yes.
And he knows
And so,
assets for both. That would be the advantage.
yes, I feel that that is a very strong advantage in the fact that they are already competent in our two
wouldn't
sets
have
of
to learn.
books.
What if we voted to retain him to do this question piece at the beginning, which isn't the bigger piece of putting the design together? And then during that time, you could decide if it's gonna do more or what the cost will be and all that. And then we'd be moving forward so that we can perhaps get to the point where Gina will feel comfortable about her question, Sally feel comfortable about her question, but we won't, just a finite amount of retainer for
I could
2
support
meetings,
that.
20 questions, whatever it is, we know what we're getting into, and then make informed decision when we just see where we're going after that.
Okay, so
I could
Stuart
support
and
that.
Kevin, what
Is
are
that a
we
motion?
talking about?
You want that in writing or in person?
No, I meant a dollar
So
amount.
tonight.
Dollar.
I'm talking about- But the dollar amount by
Maybe that's what
what?
you were saying.
I'm sorry?
What does the dollar amount buy you? What do you want?
Well, it's not what I want, how many questions do you have?
I thought we were
But
looking
we're
at the
talking
10
about
questions.
in
Well, I
person.
say 10 questions, I made that up, but maybe there's 20, maybe there's 7, I don't know how many questions.
I thought we were talking about the
What
questions on the table, like the ones that we were supposed
So
to
Well,
discuss
but there'll be
tonight. and that we
want
can-
to-
multi-parts to that.
And ask him questions.
We would,
Well, first of
Just-
all, if you
just-
hired him, you could say, these are the recommendations of the steering committee. And so far, in concept, the boards have decided they think they wanna go this way. So we like you to be able to speak to that if people have questions. And then, these are the other 4 items on here, and, we
See,
wanna know the ins and outs of that and come to 2 meetings and answer the questions.
I think that will be part of what he can bring to the table if he has the experience.
Mhm.
Because then he can answer those questions and offer a roadmap to us for everything else.
Right, and then you can decide whether you
Right.
think that's a good idea or not.
So let's do that.
Okay,
Are you making that as a motion?
well, I guess if we was gonna do what was on this paper, which isn't what we're asking for right now, for $15,000, I guess we'd have to find out how much he would charge to do what we just asked for. And I don't know the answer to that, but,
Well, the up to 15,000 was to do the analysis of our budgets.
yeah,
And-
which sounds like a bigger
No,
job.
that was the
That's
big job of analyzing the budgets, going back and
Right.
looking at 3 years of town budgets, 3 years of village budgets, looking at those budgets, then looking at the finance committee, then, assessing what the finance committee did, and then coming up with recommendations of what a real consolidated budget would look like moving forward. So that was all part of the up to 15,000 for that.
What if we were gonna retain him to come to 2 meetings
I can call him
for
right now, I
X
have a
number of
cell phone
hours?
number and ask him.
And answer questions when he knows ahead of time what the basic topic is, and see what that number is, and
I
go with
suspect
that.
his billing rate is probably $400 an hour.
I
Five?
think-
I think it's 450.
what
Okay,
about
well, I was pretty close.
what
Yeah,
about
but-
right.
up
but-
to 5,000?
It
Yes,
could
ma'am.
even be higher.
And if he comes for one
He's not paying
evening,
attention to me.
which would give
Yes,
us
we
the opportunity to ask these questions and also to assess him that's $1,800.
That's rude.
I was gonna say, I agree with you there.
Why don't we get numbers though and do
That's,
this next week though? We're gonna do that.
Well, the part of the problem is that people have legitimate questions as to the implications of these recommendations.
Yes.
We cannot
I'm
answer them.
struggling to move forward,
The
yes.
only people, we need to answer them in order to move forward.
We all
The
agree
only
with you.
way we're going to get them answered is either to hire an attorney who does the auditing, or if people are more comfortable, hiring Mr. Bond to come up one night for 4 hours at most to answer all of these questions that
So
we need answered.
Why don't we just authorize spending up to $2,000?
I like it.
1,000 each for him to give us the presentation.
And we would give him, as far as we knew, the questions in advance, but they
Yes.
may spin off other questions at the
Yeah.
meeting. Sounds good to me.
I agree.
Does somebody wanna make the motion?
I'll move it for the village.
I'll move it for the town
Somebody wanna?
to spend
You gonna
up to
second it?
$2,000 to bring in Ken Bond.
Do we have, we'll set the date in a minute.
Well, 2,000,
Two-
Kevin said
$1,000.
One night.
Okay. To bring in Ken Bond
We have the
to
money.
Joint meeting.
a joint meeting
That way.
to answer our
address-
consolidation questions.
It's the way to go.
Do I have a
We have to
second?
have the answers to the questions or we
Is there
can't.
any discussion?
All in favor?
Okay, how about, let me, guys,
What night?
wait, let me just make a suggestion and then we can do the vote.
We
okay?
have to vote on ours.
I know, we didn't vote yet either,
Oh,
so I
okay.
wanna make this suggestion before we all vote, okay? And again, you could do this next week, I really truly don't have to be here. But if you want to, because, when are you starting to do some of the finance committee, meetings?
February.
February
11th is the first one, and then it's a series of Mondays after that. I think
Tammy,
they're
look
mostly all
at, Tammy,
Mondays.
look at the list I gave you. Is the
We
11th the
didn't do
first
that on
one?
purpose.
February
Okay.
11th is-
Thank you.
Do, Jeff, you have your calendar?
You can give me your questions,
Yeah,
I'll see it.
one second. What I'm just thinking is, the first one is the 11th, and the second one would be the 18th?
Yes, I think we're doing them each Monday.
She has the
Okay.
piece of paper with her.
Yeah,
I mean,
Every Monday, you wanna see it?
Hmm?
Do you need?
just yell out the dates for us, will
well,
you?
what I'm just trying to say, if it's the 11th and the 18th, if you want to make it that third week, well, we actually have a town board meeting, or the fourth week, you'll have had at least two, if we do it the week of the 18th, you'll have had two finance committee meetings. If we do it the week of the 25th, you'll have had three, so that might give some impetus and feedback. So when we have Ken come up, some of the things that came out of the finance committee meetings could be put into, we don't necessarily just really need him to answer these questions. It would give us the ability to take a lot of the stuff that came out of some of the finance
4
stuff,
hours is gonna
to
be a
sort,
lot of questions.
to sort of frame
4
some of,
hours is a lot of questions.
yeah. So I mean, that would give us
4
time to sort of get some feedback from the community on the finance committee stuff, and that could be sort of framed into the meeting with him.
That sounds good.
I like that.
You
yeah.
can do it that way, Susan, but what I'm telling you, and what Kevin said earlier, and I concur with him, is what we did with the 2011 has nothing to do with
I
what he
understand,
needs
I
to
understand
do.
that, I understand that, but certain people sitting at this table are saying
Yeah.
they'd like to wait to get, the
So
finance
let's-
committee the
Thank you.
ability
Let's agree
to,
on a date then.
so it's a compromise, Sally.
And if we, first of all, if we agree on a date, he's gotta be available.
I know.
So I
Subject to-
think we have to give several dates.
Subject, well, I mean, that he can come, but also I think that we should have an understanding that all members of these boards, a certain amount of time before that, will posit their known questions. So
How about
he will be prepared to know, here's these 15 questions, even though there might be 15 more that he
Okay.
didn't think of
How
when he gets
about
there.
if I try to find out if, I'll ask him if he could do February 28th, and I'm only setting that date because then we could set a meeting on the 21st for all of us to come back together to agree how we want to handle the 28th and come up with all the questions and,
He
what we
needs
want
to have those ahead of time, I think, more
Well,
than a week.
Sally, some of this I can send, we can send this because some of these
And-
are
We'll
already.
send them as we go, but yeah.
But I'm saying, we could send this stuff to start,
Let's
and then,
ask him to give us
and then,
questions
right,
as
absolutely,
well.
he could also give us, the background, the history, the understanding, blah, blah, blah. So if you could make the 28th, we could meet on the 21st, and I'm just picking those 2 dates because we already have town board meetings, so we're already here, so if that works for you guys, and then,
21st isn't as good for me as the 28th.
well, we could do the 20th on the Wednesday.
I mean, the 28th will be fine,
Well, the 28th, I'm setting to ask Ken to come.
yeah.
And I was setting the 21st for us to get together to meet and talk beforehand, but if you want to do it Wednesday, the 20th, we could try to do that too. I mean, I could try to call him now if you
Okay.
want, I mean.
And I would like this sent to him.
It's not late.
Kevin,
Would you like me to call?
I would like this sent to Mr. Bond for his comment.
Now, are we gonna pay for
This
this?
is the draft joint consolidation agreement from the efficiency committee that brought you, after station identification, that. So I want him to have the recommendation, the summary of recommendations.
And how they got it.
From the efficiency committee. This chart shows you the various
Okay.
forms of government and which one the efficiency committee recommended, and this.
I mean, I do know that he already has, the
I don't-
Fairfield report, but it doesn't matter. If you
That's
could
what I
come
want
tomorrow,
said.
Sally, or give that to me.
You have these.
I understand that, but I'm not looking at it right this second.
Oh, no,
Just a sec-
okay,
I'm
but
just saying, that
It's the
afterwards you'll show me what you
overview,
want.
the final project summary of the new Paltz Government Efficiency and Effectiveness Project. Appendix A from the final report, draft joint consolidation agreement, paren coterminus for steering committee review, and then the summary of the recommendations, which some of these have already been supplanted, such as number 8, because we did not have the information that Jean and Ellen and their infrastructure study committee has now recommended to us, and I would vote to replace number 8 with their report. Okay, which is addressing benefit assessment districts, not special districts, which are very different. So, those are the 3 documents I would
Now,
like
if we
to-
use a firm though that's already done consolidation, or use a firm that's familiarity with this, they may already know the questions we should be asking too, and you may get more, you're talking about spinning our wheels, which I don't agree with, but to continue with your thought is, we're sitting here trying to reinvent the wheel, and we could certainly be much more fiscally prudent and save ourselves some heartache and time if we use a firm that has done this before. Do I know there's a firm that's done it before? No, I don't, Sally.
No, and I asked, Jeff, I know that there are 5 communities in New York State that have done what we're hoping to accomplish. Okay, okay, 5, only 5. I agree with you about a lot have tried to dissolve, but only 5 have really tried to come together and be a community together. The last one was East Rochester in New York, okay, Midwest, 1986, and the attorney, and the firm is gone, and the attorney who actually did the municipal work is unfortunately no longer with us.
But there's plenty of law firms though that have done muni work. So for example, this is probably under the same type of work of, if you just go down to Harriman, New York, they just went through a change in their government.
That
and
was
they-
totally different. That was overlaying a new village on top of an already existing town. What they did is they took their town.
Okay, well, I'm not going into them,
Yeah,
I'm not
but that's-
asking for the details now. I know what they did, Sally. What I'm
Mhm.
simply saying is there are firms out there that have done this type of work. We're not going to find a firm that does nothing but consolidation. There's no such thing as that.
No.
That you can't make a living doing that. As Kevin would say, there's a lot of overhead in being a lawyer. There you go. So, and still agree.
okay,
So I'm
Jeff,
saying we
if-
need to find, I'm saying there's very possible there's a firm out there that we could certainly have, that has a base of knowledge. So we're not paying to teach a firm
Okay.
to have a base
Can
of
I
knowledge.
But I don't.
Ask something? How about you try and find the firm?
Fine.
Because I have tried, and I have been told there are almost no law firms who have done anything with this kind of citizen empowerment law.
Up in the Secretary of State.
I talked to Kyle Wilbur.
Kyle, just ask Kyle if he knows, I'm sure there are other communities looking to consolidate. If he knows of the firms that are handling any of the pending consolidation.
Look, I'm just gonna say very quickly, everybody who's doing anything is dissolving the village. You're not looking to do coterminous government. They're just dissolving their village and getting the $1 million and moving on, okay? And so that's one statement, okay? So anybody who gives me is gonna be somebody who dissolves villages, okay? And not somebody who does coterminous, because like Sally said, nobody has done that. And what they say up at the Department of State, partly in some ways, they're like amazed that we're trying to take this on, because they all say, you dissolve the village, it's easy, you get your $1 million, move on. Okay, you have a vibrant village, it's part of your town. Everybody's looking at us like, you guys are banging your head against the wall, trying to do this sort of new bird that hasn't been done in a really, really, really long time. And, you know, so they all at the Department of State, that's why Jerry Benjamin said that the Department of State, the governor's office is looking at us to say, maybe this is a new model that could work and be replicated throughout the state, okay? But nobody has really done it since 19 whatever, blah, 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 blah,
86.
blah. What they're doing now with with this citizen empowerment thing and the $1 million is they're just dissolving villages. Because that's the easiest way
Well,
to
no, wait,
get-
first, no one's dissolving villages.
Kevin,
Five
Kevin,
communities have dissolved
that's
the
why,
village since it's
that's why we had to
One
get
of-
the
one of them
amendment to the
533
finance
residents.
law.
I know that, he's gonna send, I
One of
know
them was
that.
a vote of 63 to 4.
It doesn't matter.
Jeff, excuse me a
I'm
second.
just simply saying,
I'm just saying,
it's not
the
like you're putting
reason-
money to do it.
No, five
All in
communities.
favor of my motion?
The reason that we had
Can we do it?
to
Yes.
do
To
the
send
amendment
it
to
to
the
$2,000
finance
per
law
Ken.
is because nobody
Yes.
has done this.
Okay,
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
okay. This
Aye.
is to have Ken Bodden come for up to $2,000.
Oh, aye, okay,
Aye.
aye.
You guys said
And
aye?
what's the date, what are the dates? Yeah,
Okay,
we're,
okay,
okay,
fine.
We're gonna see if he's available on the 28th.
We'll see
and
he's
if he
available on the
isn't, what's our
28th.
alternative?
And,
Well, we'll find out.
well, guys, just
It'll
tell me,
be-
the
it'll
only
be
reason I
fine.
said the 28th is because we have a town board meeting. But if you want to do, I can check for the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, the 28th.
Go for it, man.
That's
Like
okay.
any date that he.
28th is
I
fine.
work on
I
Tuesdays.
think it's
Okay.
very, so
I
important
can
that
go
I
forward.
will change my calendar no matter what I'm doing to
I'm
be
just
here.
Okay, how about, guys, if I do this? Okay, we're gonna try to look for the week of the 25th, or the first week of March possibly, even though I might be in Washington, but, what was I gonna say, but we're gonna try to at least wait 2 weeks, at least to get some finance committee meetings happening.
Cool.
And stuff. So I will call him tomorrow, I will ask him for what dates he's available, I will try to get the 28th. If not, I'll ask him for other dates, I will email you all tomorrow, and then you guys can all get back, you know, to me, and then we could try to schedule it.
That was
Cool.
really
Is that
When's the
okay?
next time we're
good,
meeting?
that Some of the
I'm sorry,
finance.
she's
When's the
saying?
next time we're meeting as an umbrella?
That would be,
Well, I was
Never.
trying to say.
Never
We don't have- we don't have
All
to
right.
meet- We don't
If
have
we
to
do
meet
the
next
tw-
week if we're
well,
not
Okay.
ready to
if
do
you
it.
But
wanna
I'm
do-
going to move to continue this
Well,
meeting.
I was just gonna table, I was asking Susan the date so I can table it till the next time we meet.
You need
Well, you
to
don't take-
continue, not table.
Right.
Table is a motion that's on the floor,
Okay,
we've
the
already
thing,
voted.
Okay.
Technically, you have to
Next
vote on
week,
it
we
tonight
get the-
before
Well,
that session, otherwise.
if it's during the week, I'd like it to be during like either the 19th, 20th, 21st, or 22nd. So you got the two finance committees
Right.
that happened. And then we
Okay.
could meet together to like, you know, touch base on what happened with the finance committee meetings and the public. And then we could start to frame what we
Okay.
want to do moving forward.
So I thought you said the 20th.
Is it?
I think we ought to
no one
all
likes us?
submit our questions if we
Can we
have
get- Sally,
any,
can
that we
can
want
just get- Sally,
answers.
can we just get
Oh,
a,
thanks, yeah, appreciate it.
Sally, can we get it? Can we?
I like it.
Does everybody like the 20th? Is that, that's Wednesday?
For what?
For us to get together as an umbrella committee to talk about, we can still get Ken's
That's-
stuff
that's-
before then.
I've submitted what I wanna know.
That's a
I'm
village
not
board meeting,
sitting
right?
here playing la again. I just think we can't do it.
I know, but this
I'll
is to
see
get
you
back.
on the
But
28th.
this is to get together to hear what input came back from the finance committee. So if there's anything we wanna frame.
I recommend the people that are concerned
the
attend the
village board
finance
meeting?
committee
The
meeting.
20th we do.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to
See,
come
I agree
here.
with her. I was
But
going
we don't wanna do it on
now
the
that I
20th,
heard
if
that they
it's-
have
So
them
that's
set
what
up,
Somebody's gonna tell
I'll
them.
just go.
Okay, no, but I thought the purpose was for us to come back to talk together about if there's anything we wanna frame out of the finance committee meetings to ask Ken to
I
address.
suggest that anybody who's concerned attend the finance committee, frame their questions and submit them.
Okay, fine.
No, I-
So-
21st?
I
Okay, hold
I
on.
agree with you, but I mean, I think that would be worthwhile. You wouldn't have to have an
Us again.
extremely long meeting. But on the 20th, that's a village board meeting, for one thing.
And a school board meeting.
Yeah,
That's
if
a school
it's
board
a
meeting.
school
So
board
that's
budget
a
meeting,
very
that's
bad
not.
day to have it, I think.
How was the 21st?
We want people to come to it, so I think we should do the 21st.
So I will tentatively.
I'm not attending,
Okay.
because I really believe that we have spent a tremendous amount of wasting time. And
Okay.
I believe that if we have questions, I submitted what the documents I am concerned about. Susan knows what they are. If people have concerns about the finance committee, they better attend the first finance committee meeting and then submit their questions.
Okay,
We're
so
just getting back together on the 28th.
Okay, so
I'm gonna set a
Sally's
meeting,
done.
I'm gonna set a meeting for February 21st. You girls can decide if you wanna come or not. If we have a quorum, we'll have a meeting. If we don't have a quorum, we won't have a meeting, but we're hopefully gonna be meeting on the 28th. How
Okay,
about
sounds
that?
delightful.
We are
Okay.
definitely meeting on the 20th.
21st.
Well,
for
yeah,
us
you have
to-
a town board meeting
That night anyway,
so-
right. So you guys are more than welcome to join us if you would like.
Motion to
Okay.
continue
Thank
this
you.
joint town village
Meeting
meeting
on
on
February
February 21st.
Do I have a second? I will
Second.
second.
I'm not attending, so I'm not
Okay, yes,
seconding.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, motion so carried.
Sally, they're gonna have the meeting on.
Okay, is everybody okay with this?
A
Yeah.
motion to continue this meeting on the
Okay.
Are we
Motion
voting
to
Are we
adjourn.
No, no,
voting
no, no, no,
separately
no,
or
no,
what?
no, no.
What? The
You're not-
joint.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Get them out of here.
We vote on that?
It's
I know, we
late.
have time.
Send me home.
Okay.
Two point of order. Did we
Sally's
vote
getting
on
a
that?
little snippy.
Sally,
Did the village
Get
vote
no
on
ice
that?
cream.
To adjourn to.
We
No.
voted
No, we're
to
not-
continue the
Right.
meeting on the
Right.
All right.
21st.
Did
Yes.
everyone vote in favor of
Yes.
that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
fine.
Sally, you're gonna be there.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're
All in favor, yes.
I am
Second-
not.
Second point of
Sally, we will drag you
information.
kicking and screaming.
Someone,
In 2
someone,
weeks, she'll calm down. Let's
someone
not talk
should
about it
be
anymore.
the recipient of,
Don't
from all of us, of the questions that we're gonna send him ahead of time, because he doesn't wanna be getting
I
100
agree.
messages from 100 people. Somebody should get it to them, and then
Well-
whoever it is, will get it to wherever he wants it emailed.
That was already discussed and done, and the supervisor got all mine.
No, I understand
no,
that, but
not
there's gonna be
about
more
this,
questions
she
coming
didn't.
forward, that there might be more questions coming forward. And, I mean, you could send them to my assistant,
Okay,
Okay.
thank
and
you.
send them to my assistant, carbon me, because I will be looking at my emails. But send them to my assistant, and she'll compile them, and she'll be in touch with Ken Bond.
Very good.
Okay, is that okay? You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's been fun.
bye, guys.
Have a great night.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
No, you're not adjourning.
I think you should have thrown us out 2 hours ago.
Okay, guys, can we,
Is it ice cream time?
No,
Oh,
it's,
you just missed
Take
out.
care.
I
Feel better.
know,
well,
So-
I know.
well, 7 o'clock. Are you here till 11 or 11:30? 11:30?
Yes.
Oh,
I
God,
will
lucky us,
let
we
you
have
know.
another half hour.
I will,
leave the
I'm
couple.
definitely coming.
Well, I
Guys,
know, but I
can we
need to know
go
the
real
other
quick?
two too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what.
We had to do a new retirement resolution, to just, correct some things. So Jean took care of it, she corrected it, so I don't think anybody really needs to look at it. It's just that myself.
It's the same
and-
thing from last year.
Same thing, just with.
I make a motion to adopt the resolution
we
and
should
post
talk
it for
about it.
30 days.
We'll talk about it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Do you have, Rosanna?
I did it, I have it.
Okay, so I don't have to do anything with this other than, great, okay.
Nope, I've done it many
And we
times.
took the vote, right? Okay, Al Wagner gave us a, Al Wagner, I think you all got a copy of it.
Well, I know you don't.
Guys,
Well,
Sally, we guys, we're having a meeting,
Sorry.
okay? The association, remember we did an Association of Towns resolution on the planting of trees up on Main Street?
Yep.
And stuff, so, he made, the Association of Towns Resolution Committee is meeting on Friday, and our cause would be helped greatly by the town passing the resolution as attached revision, which changes the last whereas, and the be it resolved from the one previously passed. I believe this strengthens our position greatly. And yes, the Association of Towns does believe that towns can do this now under New York State Municipal Home Rule Law and are willing to present as such to its membership, which is great, they can present it. I spoke to Joe about this, and he would like to see their evidence, but I believe I am representing his thoughts correctly to say that he does not outright disagree with them. So he changed, whatever he changed, I trust.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Okay. I'd like just a motion to authorize a prepay to the village for the sum of $244,000 for the fire contract.
So moved.
Well,
You know, that we already approved the contract.
oh, that's right, yes.
It's just that I want to get the check out, and I don't want to,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. And then the last thing is Park Point. This is the copy as amended by George based on Kevin and Jeff's recommendations and Kitty's recommendations, it's right there. So it's long and it's whatever. I don't know how you guys want to handle this, if you want to have the time to read it. I think the deadline to get it to the planning board is January,
31st, so actually.
that's tomorrow.
Yeah, what I'd like to do.
Which I just have to do, I promised, my husband asked me, tonight's my husband's birthday, and so when we ended up making this meeting and I told him, he said, the least you could do is wish me happy birthday. So happy birthday, Steve. Okay, back to work.
You know what, and happy birthday, Gail, it's my mom's birthday, happy birthday, Gail Logan, okay?
Okay, happy
Got-
birthday, Gal.
Thank you very much, happy birthday, Steve. I'd like to make a motion to, actually, we've already done it, I'd like to make make a motion to supervisors submit the comments from the town board, to, help me here, to the planning board to be included with the comments on the DEIS.
Do I have a second for purposes of discussion?
I would second that.
Okay.
Kevin already did.
I mean, discussions, I haven't had a chance to read this because it's.
And
a
just so
budget.
everyone knows,
But-
it's Kitty's comments,
Right,
it's
yours and-
George's comments, it's Dave Clauser's comments, it's Kevin's comments,
Mhm.
it's my comments. And this is the last version that was vetted, and I spoke to George just before he sent this out tonight.
Yeah,
And Kevin, just a few of the things he added back in, and he does have reasonings for it. And the next meeting you're at, he will gladly go over
You're
why
tonight,
it needs
right?
to be added back in. Some of them actually do talk back to pieces that are in the fiscal impact statement, the FIES. So he said, since they're in there, you do need to, they raise the point, so then you respond to it. The traffic study being one of them. There's some traffic things you'll see that you and I thought should be taken out. Also on the growth, there were some pieces on the growth of the campus that you and I didn't know they needed to be in there. They use that.
I saw that.
They use the growth of the campus throughout the FEIS. So then we should be asking questions on why are they using zero growth. We're asking them to defend that, and should something change, we'd like to have the right to go back and look for enumeration.
okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Okay, motions are carried.
and I just have to say,
Go ahead.
believe it or not, I got the email. I read it. And I wanted to say, good points after you guys went through it and then George went through it again. Very good points, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so then just the last thing very, very quickly, where it says contract negotiations.
There's more?
Just really quickly, yes. Just very quickly on the RRA, you guys know that, they owe us money, we owe them money, we believe they owe us more money than they think they owe us. You know, we hired George, you know, we had the meeting, they made an offer. George doesn't really even believe it's an offer, Dave doesn't believe it's an offer.
No, wait, I'm
so
sorry, they don't believe it's an offer, or they believe it's the correct offer?
George and Dave don't really truly believe it was really an offer.
Oh, it's not even an offer.
No, well, they sort of like, in a sense, sort of took what we said and sort of like really didn't address it and made like, you know.
It's a fake offer.
It's a fake offer
Fake
and
offer.
stuff. And so I had a conference call with George and Dave today in terms of next steps, because obviously we're gonna try to close out the 2012 budget, and the fact that they owe us money and we owe them money, you know, I'd like to try to like, you know, settle it in a sense. So what George, myself, and Dave talked about was that I would get an accounting from the controller of what they believe we owe them, what we believe they owe us. Not talking about what we want as our settlement, the actual hard, you know, numbers.
Yeah.
And that when I get that, that we then, you guys authorize me to pay the money that we owe them for the, you know, under the solid waste management agreement.
Based on tonnage.
Based on tonnage. And then we send the letter, that George would draft the letter basically saying that we're making this payment with, Kevin, help me with the language, without any, like in other words, by paying it doesn't mean we don't still reserve the right to basically challenge the fact that they owe us more money.
Wow, why would you want any money?
Well, because, we owe them money and they owe us
I
money.
know, but when you
So-
send somebody money and say you reserve a
No,
right
but
to
no, let me
contest
just,
or
let me
now
stop
you
for,
owe me?
no, let me stop for a second. No, let me stop for a minute. When they wrote back to us, okay, giving us their offer, they basically said that if they pay us this and we pay this, that they reserve the right.
Okay, so
Okay,
let's have
so-
them crossing the mail at the same time.
So, no, so basically, by, see, we're sort of in, not violation, what's the word?
Errors?
Like when you sort of,
Out of compliance?
we're out of compliance with the solid waste management agreement because I haven't been paying them. They're now out of compliance with the transfer station agreement because they haven't been paying us. So if we pay them without, holding back the right to say that we're gonna go after more money, we take away their ability to then counterclaim that, we owe them, and we're out of compliance. So we don't wanna give them the ability to say we're out of compliance because we can get, attorney fees back if we, move forward and we win. But if they do a countersuit, then it takes away our ability to possibly get back, fees and stuff. So George believes, I asked the question, and George said he does believe in some ways that we might be on more solid ground. If we just take care of the money that we owe them, then they could decide if they want to pay us or not, or wait for us to do what our next step is, but it puts us on a better solid ground as we continue to say you owe us more money.
I would just take the money we're gonna pay them and sue them using their money.
See, Gene, this is why we love attorneys, right there, isn't it?
How about this? How about if the board, it's just that because I'm leaving and I'd like to try to take care of this, but.
But now, wait, I remember seeing a great spreadsheet from Dave Clausen.
Yes.
Great spreadsheet, with a nice attachment to
Yes.
it. Do you remember this? Really great.
There's about $98,000 at stake.
It had it all spelled out, it had all the tonnage, it did all the figures.
Right.
So they're just taking that,
It's a
they're
C-
taking that sheet and just saying that is incorrect.
It's a CPI index,
Right.
and how you calculate the
But
CPI
I got it, but
index is-
he
right.
had figured it all out very nicely, it
Right.
was clear, and they're saying no.
What they're basically saying is, yes, we owe you for overage, and we'll pay you for overage, but they're not basing the overage on the CPI index, which accounts for like close to $98,000. Now, actually, it's more money than 98,000. It's actually 98 plus another 36 to 45. But there's two things. In state law, I guess you can only go back 6 years on a contract.
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. However, in the contract, there's a waiver. So George
Where is
doesn't
that?
know if the waiver would supersede the state statute or vice versa. So his goal would be to go for everything, but we might only get the
Have-
6. But the 6 is 98, the other is
Have
40.
they made, what's their fake law?
I think $10,000 on the overage.
If you were the attorney, would you use the money and just start a suit with them? Or would you actually send them a check?
If they made a realistic offer and said, if you tender your money, we'll tender ours, that makes sense. But they're saying, give me your money.
No, they're not saying give you, no. They're not saying give us our money.
No,
I chose to hold, I chose.
Wait, I'm
with the
sorry,
board-
but our attorney is saying they will be on better footings. Do you agree with
Well,
that?
they won't be able to counterclaim
Right.
based upon, but,
Right.
so what are they counterclaiming?
Is that two separate court cases?
Well, they're just gonna counterclaim for the amount that we owe them. And then you prove that they owe us, and there's an offset.
We
But
don't,
one is not contingent upon the other necessarily.
we don't have to pay them,
But
we
if we
can keep
both have
going.
valid claims,
Well, they don't really have a
then-
valid claim. They only have a valid claim that we haven't paid them. They don't have a valid
they
claim,
have a valid claim to what we owe them.
yes. And we have a valid claim to what they owe us.
So what is the
But
difference
then- and
between,
then-
so
and
you
then-
wanna pay the difference?
No, what I
She
wanna
wants to
pay
pay the
is,
whole amount.
I want, no. I wanna pay the amount that we owe them. There's no debate about what we owe them. There's no debate. The debate is what they owe us.
How much
owe
do
us
we owe
us.
them, top of your head?
We owe them probably about 45,000, and they owe us about 55,000, just on straight cash. Dave believes they owe us 140,000 above the 55,000.
What would
Okay.
you
Okay,
say?
so I'm saying we pay our 45, they still owe us the 55, but then we counter, we move forward on, not only do you owe us the 55, you really owe us the rest of the money, of which he believes we're on solid
Okay,
ground.
so-
to
Is
get.
this the,
I
is this
just
the
have
same,
one question.
wait, is this the same department though that's also wasted $22 million looking for landfill space?
What about the fact that now that they got flow control, they just hired a compliance officer, and now they're hiring a second
They
compliance
wasted,
officer?
this is the same people that's saying
Yes,
they
right.
wasted $25
Right.
million
Yeah.
trying
But
to
these
fund
are
the
the people
county
who say that they don't have any money,
So,
and part of the reason why they don't want to, their excuse for why they can't give us the money that we believe they owe us is, oh, it wasn't in the budget, we don't have the money.
Let me ask you a question. The
That is not an
That's-
acceptable
I know.
response.
I know, that's why George thinks that our case is very
The
good.
agreement,
Okay,
the agreement
so-
that we have with them
Yeah,
for paying overage, does it have a provision in it that says the successful party shall be entitled to an award of attorney's fees?
I suspect it must because George brought that up, and
Then in that case, it might be better if we pay them.
that's why,
Because then that number can be a very large number over time.
Legal fees.
Yes. But
I'm
if it
sure
has
it mu-
that provision, then it would make sense.
I'm pretty sure it must, because when I asked George today, and I said, let me ask you a question, would it be better for us as a town, for me to settle what we owe them, okay, and then move forward, will that put us on better legal ground? That's when he said, yes, I think, first he didn't say yes, but then he did say, yes, I think it will, because they won't have a counterclaim, and we'll be able to collect legal fees,
As long as it's in the agreement, you can.
which it must probably be.
If it's in, I'm in favor.
Now, Ken and Tracy are the big proponents that did the dog and pony show on flow control.
Mhm.
Does that help us at all, or that means absolutely nothing?
Well,
Is flow control
This is
compliant?
the irony. This is, again, it's the irony of the circular nature of me being here last time and then being here again. When I got into office the first time, and remember the board gave me a transfer station contract that they approved at the last minute, to build the transfer station, and then a firm did an Article 78. So I walked in with an Article 78 in a contract, and that was the first thing I had to deal with, was this whole thing. When I didn't trust the fact that the amount of tonnage they were gonna bring in, I believed that they would probably bring in more tonnage. And so we ended up negotiating a stipulation that if they went over the amount of tonnage they were supposed to bring in, they had to pay us, like a premium, a surcharge, okay? So the irony is, now that we have flow control, and the only two transfer stations are New Paltz and Ulster, we're gonna probably get a lot more tonnage, and therefore, that surcharge is going to now all of a sudden come back and benefit us. They want to actually renegotiate the contract. Of course they want to renegotiate, because they've got the surcharge now with flow control. They're gonna have to pay us over and above all the garbage they bring in. So it can benefit us, even though I don't believe in it, it can benefit us as a town.
Why, because why was it a Gardner representative and a Newton Paltz rep? Why'd they grab those two?
Because Ken doesn't believe in flow control, but he believed in flow control in this particular instance because it was a way to relieve the county of the net service fee, the millions of dollars that we give in the net service fee. And so to get out from underneath the contract, he felt this was the only way to do it. Tracy, I'm not sure her thinking. She's the one behind the recycling part that Laura has problems with. I'm not 100%, I can't explain Tracy's thinking. I can only explain Ken's thinking. So, so we could do one of two things. I mean, if you would authorize me to make the payment based on Kevin talking to George tomorrow to confirm the comfort level that, the thought process is exactly what it needs to be in terms of, the attorney fees and all that kind of stuff, then we could do it that way, that, you authorized me to settle settle what we owe them upon Kevin talking to George and calling me to say, yeah, move ahead. Is that okay with everybody?
I'll move that.
Jeff, you want to second it? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motions are carried. Now I have a motion to adjourn unless somebody wants to say
No,
something.
only because I think that once you pay
778
RRA,
212.
I think the point of it is to get the overage at the CPI.
Yes, yeah, well, once we pay them, then we go to the next step.
Exactly. I
And-
see it. So now you want to make a motion to adjourn, or you want me
I'd
to
like
make it?
Please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I always ask.
And we did it without,
Going over. I always ask him that. When he pulled my nose, is this on the book?
I'm gonna ask him.
He said,
That
he
up?
said,
We
he
got
said
our
yes. He goes, it's going to
resolution.
Wilmot. I go,
Done.
I go,
Out of the way.